What's going on, guys? We are live on YouTube. It is week 16 of the NFL season. Week 16. There's only a few weeks left in the season. This is the fantasy football semifinals, the fantasy football finals for some of you. And the A.J. Brown start was clutch for a lot of people. I hope you started A.J. Brown. If you tuned in on Thursday, we determined, I think it was like 20 minutes into the Thursday live, that A.J. Brown was pretty much a must start in most situations. So I hope you all started A.J. Brown on Thursday night. I hope you all cashed on the Deebo Samuel prop on Thursday night as well. We are live on YouTube, on TikTok, getting ready for week 16 of the NFL season, which is already well underway. Already 3 games have been played in week 16. There is a ton of news to cover this week. So I'm starting the stream a tiny bit late. Had to make sure the WalterPicks app was updated with all the news. There's been an absolutely insane amount of news in the NFL between just normal injuries and then also the COVID list as well. Guys, we're live on YouTube and TikTok on the YouTube Live. You can see my top 10 rankings, every single position. The best defense today, I would argue the Eagles are the best defense today. The best defense always ends up being the defense that just ends up scoring a touchdown. But with Jake Fromm starting against the Eagles today, his first start of his career, we have Jake Fromm starting today. We have Josh Johnson starting today. We have Tim Boyle starting today for the Lions. Jared Goff is on the COVID list. So a lot of interesting QBs today. I do like the Eagles defense a lot today, though, and I won't be surprised if the the Lions also struggle. Henry or Kmet? Yeah, I think you got to go Henry. Let's go Patriots. The best game of the week this season. Not this season, this week. It's the Patriots versus the Bills. It's really not even close. If you come to the YouTube Live, link to that is in the TikTok bio if you're watching live on TikTok. You can see my picks against the spread for this week. And there's some pretty ugly spreads this week. We have the Giants 11-point underdogs against the Eagles. The Panthers are 11-point underdogs against the Buccaneers. The Texans are 12-point underdogs. The Lions are 7. Like almost all the games have a spread over a touchdown. The best game of the week, though, it's the Patriots versus the Bills. But somehow the Patriots are favored in this game because they're at home. They're slight 1-point favorites. I think the Patriots win, but I'm not that confident about it. I'm not. I think it's going to be a good game, Patriots versus the Bills. Yo, I have Kelsey out. Who should I pick up? Yeah, guys, Travis Kelsey is out. He's out this week. Tyreek Hill was able to come back off the COVID list. Travis Kelsey was not. And to me, the best tight end pickup is if Cole Kmet's not available, then I think you got to go try to find Foster Moreau because Darren Waller's out again. I know Moreau has not done much, but he still ranks as a top 10 tight end for me. He comes in at number 9, actually, because the tight end position is just so bleak. Yeah, Uzoma's not the worst option either. I think I like Moreau more than Uzoma, though. I think I like Moreau more than Uzoma. Jackson or Harris? Yeah, you got to go Justin Jackson over Damien Harris. Guys, so really quickly, some guys that you just absolutely have to start this week if you're still in the fantasy hunt. And again, if you come to the YouTube Live, link to that is in the TikTok bio. You can see my top 10 rankings, every single position, my favorite picks against the spread. There'll be a free prop pick on the YouTube Live. Plus, you'll see my DraftKings FanDuel lineup as well. So come to the YouTube Live to get a little bit more info. But really quickly, some guys that I think you absolutely have to start this week. Like, really, there's no debate about it. You need to be starting Antonio Brown. First of all, you got to start Antonio Brown. Mike Evans is out. Chris Godwin is out. Leonard Fournette is out in this game against the Panthers. This is not a good matchup for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers passing attack. It still doesn't even matter because Antonio Brown is the clear number 1 target for Tom Brady, the team that throws the most deep attempts per game in the NFL. Start Antonio Brown this week, please. Regardless of what you think about what he's done off the field, start Antonio Brown. You also need to start Cordarrelle Patterson this week. Cordarrelle Patterson's coming off his worst game of the season. So I'm worried that a lot of people are going to second guess Cordarrelle Patterson this week, but you just can't do it, guys. He's playing the Lions. The Lions have allowed the second most rushing yards per game to running backs this season. You got to start Cordarrelle Patterson. You have to start Cordarrelle Patterson. It's too good of a spot not to be starting Cordarrelle Patterson. The Lions are still 7-point underdogs in this game against the Falcons. I think Patterson scores at least 1 touchdown this week. I think he goes over 70 rushing yards with ease. Start Cordarrelle Patterson. Again, guys, we are live on YouTube and TikTok right now. Link to the YouTube Live in the TikTok bio, and in the YouTube Live, you can see my top 10 rankings, every single position, plus my favorite picks against the spread, and much more. So come to the YouTube Live, And if you are watching live on YouTube, hit that like button and subscribe button. I do appreciate that. The other guy you got to start this week, no matter how hard it is for you to start, is James Robinson, man. It's James Robinson who's going to win leagues this season. He already popped off last week for 17 points in his first game without Urban Meyer. And in that game, like all of us were hoping, James Robinson had an 82% snap share. That was the highest he's had in over a month and a half. So he's playing more without Urban Meyer now, but not only is he playing more, he gets a matchup against the Jets this week. He had a matchup against the Texans last week. The Texans have allowed the most rushing yards per game to running backs, but this week he gets actually what I consider an even more exciting matchup against the Jets, who have allowed by far the most receiving yards per game to running backs this season. They have been torched through the air at the running back position. I think it's 18 total running backs have gone over like 25 receiving yards against this defense. I think James Robinson going to go over 100 total yards today and a touchdown. So you got to start James Robinson as well. There's a lot of running backs to consider this week, though. I know a lot of you are considering Ronald Jones, Justin Jackson. There's a lot of good running backs. I think I'm missing one. Ronald Jones, Justin Jackson. There's one more who's starting as a backup that really like is a top 15 running back option this week. But I would, the only guy that I would be starting over James Robinson, there's not very many. There's not very many. I think you need to be starting James Robinson really over all of those other guys mentioned. Like I'm starting him over Justin Jackson. I'm definitely starting him over Ronald Jones. I like all of these guys, by the way. I think they're all good options, but they're not as good as James Robinson in this matchup. Justin Jackson gets the Texans this week, though. So you kind of have to be starting Justin Jackson as well. I like Justin Jackson more than Ronald Jones. I think I like Justin Jackson a little bit less than Alexander Madison, though. I think I like him less than Alexander Madison, but I like James Robinson more than Alexander Madison. So if I were to rank all those guys, I would say James Robinson number 1, Madison number 2, Justin Jackson number 3, Ronald Jones number 4. But all those guys can be started with some confidence. They can, especially in PPR leagues. Justin Jackson gets a bump. It's a good matchup for Justin Jackson. It's a good matchup for Ronald Jones too, because the Panthers pass defense has been better than their run defense all season. And again, we already mentioned all the guys out for the Bucs. No Mike Evans, no Chris Godwin, no Leonard Fournette. Ronald Jones has a very realistic path to over 20 carries today. He does. Again, I'm still starting James Robinson over him. I'm still starting Justin Jackson over him, and I'm still starting Alexander Madison over him. But that doesn't mean Ronald Jones is a bad play. I think they're all top 15 plays. And guys, we are live on YouTube and TikTok right now. If you're watching live on TikTok, come to the YouTube live. You can see my top 10 rankings, every single position. I got my tight end rankings up right now, which is going to answer a lot of comments you're seeing in the chat. But also, I'm seeing a lot of start-sit questions in the chat. I built an app that can help you answer these start-sit questions. It's called the WalterPicks app. Link to it is in the TikTok bio and the YouTube description. It's on the Google Play Store and the iOS Store. And we're basically giving away the app for free right now. You can download it for free. It's not usually 100% free, but right now it is. We're giving everyone 25 free start-sit comparisons. And in those start-sit comparisons, you can compare every single player's projected points and boom and bust probabilities, all which is using machine learning to get those projections. So check out the WalterPicks app too. That can help you answer a lot of these start-sit questions I'm seeing in the chat. If Swift doesn't play, are we starting Craig Reynolds? Guys, I was down big on Craig Reynolds last week, and he proved me wrong. He topped 100 yards last week. I don't think he found the end zone, so he didn't have like the craziest fantasy day. But Swift is playing. I think that he's on the right side of questionable, and I believe Jamal Williams is playing too. So Craig Reynolds is really not someone we should be talking about. Start 2, Gibson, Justin Jackson, Ronald Jones. Antonio Gibson is a really tough guy to trust this week. I really would not be starting him over Justin Jackson or Ronald Jones. Given his injury, Antonio Gibson, I don't think has officially been even ruled in yet. I think he's going to play. I think he's on the right side of questionable. But he didn't practice this week. And even though it's not a horrible matchup against the Eagles, who have had a better pass defense than run defense, the last report is there is some optimism that Antonio Gibson will play in Week 16. That's not what you want to hear heading into a pivotal Week 16 matchup if you're in the semifinals or finals. So, yeah, I'm definitely nervous about Antonio Gibson. I would start Justin Jackson and Ronald Jones over Antonio Gibson. Do you like James Robinson this week? Yes, I love James Robinson this week. I think you have to start James Robinson everywhere you really like, you can't ignore how good of a matchup this is, and also how much better of a situation James Robinson is in now that Urban Meyer's gone. Patterson or Ronald Jones? Yeah, I'm starting Patterson over Ronald Jones. I'm starting Cordero Patterson over Ronald Jones. Patterson has a better matchup than Ronald Jones. Cordero Patterson is also just better than Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones could see more carries, though, than Patterson. So I don't think it's like it's that easy of a decision, but I'm still going Cordero Patterson against the Lions. I guess I know. The Lions are on a bit of a streak right now. But they're still 7-point underdogs against the Falcons, in for good reason. The Lions lack talent all over the field, and they've been a horrible run defense, and they've allowed a lot of passing yards to running backs this season. To your app subscriber, Marcus, thanks so much for subscribing, man. The number one way you could possibly support me and possibly support the WalterPicks brand is by going and downloading the WalterPicks app, which can answer a lot of the start-sit questions I'm seeing in the chat right now for free. And the best way to support us is doing one of the premium subs in the app, which helps you dominate throughout the whole fantasy season, plus dominate player props for NFL and NBA. So, Marcus, seriously, thank you. All right, you're deciding between Cordero Patterson, Ronald Jones, Justin Jackson, and Javonte Williams. Had Aaron Jones concerned about Patterson's workload? Yeah, I think the concerns about Patterson's workload are totally warranted. I'm not going to be surprised if Patterson touches the ball less than Ronald Jones and less than Justin Jackson this week. I think I'm still starting Patterson, though, over Ronald Jones, especially if it's a PPR league. But all three of these guys I like this week. I do. Justin Jackson has the best matchup of all. And Javonte Williams is not easy to bench either in a good matchup against the Raiders, though he will be splitting work as well. Like, I think there's valid volume concerns for Javonte Williams also. So if you're worried about volume, Marcus, the guys that are going to get the most touches in this list are Justin Jackson and Ronald Jones. So you can start both of them. But if you're only going to start one guy here, to me, it's probably Justin Jackson. It's probably Justin Jackson. I don't want to bench Cordero Patterson, but he does have volume concerns. Who should I start in flex, Madison, AB, or Renfro? Yeah, I refuse to bench Antonio Brown this week. I probably would start Madison over him, like Madison's safer. But guys, there's no Mike Evans. There's no Chris Godwin. There's no Leonard Fournette. It's going to be Antonio Brown and Rob Gronkowski. Gronk's actually my number one tight end this week, which is absolutely insane. But he's my number one tight end. Travis Kelce's out. Darren Waller's out. George Kittle already played. Gronk's the number one tight end this week. And for similar reasons, Antonio Brown's a top 10 wide receiver heading into this week. It's not a good matchup for him. But he's probably going to see a minimum of 7 targets. And he could easily go for 150 yards to 2 TDs. Like, that is in the range of outcomes for Antonio Brown. That is week winning upside. That's exactly why you got to start AB. Don't get me wrong. Alexander Madison's a good option too. And he's safer than Antonio Brown because Antonio Brown, again, doesn't have that good of a matchup. But for the ceiling alone, man, I'm going Antonio Brown over Alexander Madison. It is close, though. It is close. And again, I do think Madison is a safer floor. Guys, we are live on YouTube and TikTok. If you're watching live on YouTube, just hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It takes you 2 seconds. Helps me out a ton. I will try to get to as many of the comments as I possibly can in this crazy Week 16 semifinals fantasy football week. For some people, it's the finals. But, I mean, there's a lot of news to catch up on. You really need to be up to date with the news because Justin Jackson, Ronald Jones, and Alexander Madison, they're all top 15 options at the running back position this week. All of them. All top 15 options. And really, they weren't started in a single league last week. Hey, Sam, do you think it's finally Kyle Pitts week? It's week 16. Is it finally Kyle Pitts week? And also, what are your thoughts on Justin Jackson? Yeah, I think Justin Jackson's a really safe bet this week. I do. I think he's going to have a good game as a receiver, but he also could do really well as a runner because he's up against the Texans. Guys, we talked a lot about the Texans on this stream. The Texans have cashed for us many, many times with the running back props and in DFS, and it's just not going to be surprising when Justin Jackson and or Joshua Kelly have good games against the Texans defense this week, who have allowed the most rushing yards per game to running backs. Like, even when they know the other team's running the ball, the Texans just let teams rip against them in the run. But yeah, I do think this could be Kyle Pitts week. I do. And it's against the Detroit Lions. If there's any team that's going to fail to cover Kyle Pitts, it's the Lions. And I could not believe that Kyle Pitts made the Pro Bowl, by the way. I mean, it feels like Kyle Pitts has not had a very good season. If you've been watching fantasy football closely, you know this already. It goes to show, I mean, the Pro Bowl really means nothing. But this could be the Kyle Pitts week. The last game for the Detroit Lions, Zach Ertz had 74 yards, 6 catches, 11 points. Kyle Pitts, if he scores a touchdown, probably going to be a top 5 tight end. Like, I don't think it's a lock though. It's so tough to trust Kyle Pitts week to week at this point in the season. Thoughts on Michael Carter? Yeah, Colin. I do have thoughts on Michael Carter. Michael Carter's just, he's so tough to trust in this game. This Jaguars-Jets game, outside of James Robinson, is so hard to have any confidence about. Both teams are incentivized to lose this game. Like, this is the worst thing in fantasy, when both teams are incentivized to lose the game, right? The Jaguars and Jets, they're competing for the number 1 overall seed. Like, why would the Jets give Michael Carter a big workload in this game? That's my question. They're trying to lose. Michael Carter is the most talented player they have on offense heading into this game, but they're incentivized to lose the game. So I don't feel very confident in how many touches Michael Carter is going to get, and he's coming off a really disappointing game where he scored, I think, only 3 fantasy points last week, and there's definitely a chance we see something similar. He had 8 carries. He only had 1 catch, 9 total touches, 20 yards. That was it. 3 points. In a PPR league, he had 3 points. 20 yards, 1 catch. That's it. That could easily happen again. He still played 57% of the snaps. So I think he could see more work, but I'm not feeling good about Michael Carter. Ronald Jones or Antonio Brown? Yeah, I'm playing Antonio Brown over Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones is safer. Look, the running backs are always safer than the receivers. They're always safer than the receivers because they're locked into more volume than the receivers, right? Ronald Jones, I think he has a clear path to 20-plus touches today. But I'm still starting Antonio Brown over him. Antonio Brown absolutely has a higher ceiling. Bro, I'm in the playoffs. Who do I start, Antonio Brown or Lockett? Yeah, you got to start Antonio Brown. You got to start Antonio Brown over Lockett, too. You do. You have to start Antonio Brown over Lockett. I'm sorry. It's just the ceiling and floor for Antonio Brown are higher than Lockett. The ceiling is at least the same. It's at least the same. Guys, we're live on YouTube and TikTok right now. If you come to the YouTube live, link is in the TikTok bio. You can see my top 10 rankings every position. And at the number 1 overall quarterback for me this week, even though Mike Williams is out, it's Jay Herbo, man. Justin Herbert cannot be benched. He cannot be benched this week. If you have Justin Herbert, don't bench him. Don't bench him. I know the running matchup is better for the Chargers than the passing matchup, but do not bench Justin Herbert against the Texans this week. Another couple of guys that I think you just can't bench. Cordarrelle Patterson, I refuse to bench him against the Lions. There's valid volume concerns. And he's coming off the worst game he's had all season. But Cordarrelle Patterson actually played the most snaps that he's played, the highest percentage of snaps that he's played in over a month last week. And the Lions have allowed they've been a bottom 5 rush defense this season. I think Cordarrelle Patterson could easily go over 100 yards and a couple touchdowns today. And similar story with James Robinson, who, again, I don't want to have too much confidence about this Jets game because it feels like the Jets and the Jaguars are both incentivized to lose this game. They're both competing for the number 1 overall pick. And the Jaguars are actually 2-point underdogs against the Jets, which is why I'm taking the Jaguars against the spread. Because, I mean, how could you not take the underdog in this game? Both teams are incentivized to lose. But James Robinson played over 80% of the snaps for the first time last week in the first game without Urban Meyer. And the Jets have been horrible against running backs this season. So I'm starting Cordarrelle Patterson and I'm starting James Robinson over some of the backups today that a lot of people are going to like and that I like too. I like Alexander Mattison. I have him as a top 10 running back this week. I like Justin Jackson. I have him right outside the top 10 this week. I also like Ronald Jones, who's also right outside the top 10 for me. But I'm starting Patterson and I'm starting James Robinson over all those guys. Getting some Amon-Ra St. Brown questions. And guys, I was live Thursday night. I go live every Thursday night, every Sunday morning. And the question of Thursday night, at least 20 people asked this question on Thursday night. At least 20 people asked this question on Thursday night. Amon-Ra St. Brown or A.J. Brown? I mean, man, I hope you went with A.J. Brown. And we went with A.J. Brown. Everyone on the Thursday night live stream went with A.J. Brown over Amon-Ra St. Brown. And that was before the Jared Goff news. Jared Goff is out now this week, which is a pretty big ding to Amon-Ra St. Brown and Josh Reynolds. I really think you have to bench both those guys now. How are we trusting? How are we trusting someone catching passes from Tim Boyle? You can't. You can't trust Amon-Ra St. Brown this week. Like, he's been balling, guys. He's gone over 13 points in 3 straight games. He's got over 20 points in 2 of his last 3. You can't trust Amon-Ra St. Brown. Knox or Gesicki? Yeah, guys, Dawson Knox is such a tough one this week because Dawson Knox, he has an interesting ceiling in the Bills offense. He does. He has an interesting ceiling in the Bills offense, but the Patriots have been so good against tight ends this season. Top 3 defense against tight ends. I personally would go Gesicki over Knox. I actually think the Dolphins win this week on Monday Night Football as well. All right, someone's asking for my DraftKings lineup, and I'm really liking the DraftKings lineup this week, I'm not going to lie, because I'm rocking with Josh Johnson at quarterback. Josh Johnson, I believe he's the lowest price starting quarterback. I could be wrong about that, but he is very cheap on DraftKings and FanDuel this week. He's going to be the starting quarterback for the Ravens. And what do we know about starting quarterbacks for the Ravens, guys? They will run the ball a lot. And we talk about this a lot. We want quarterbacks that run the ball. We want running backs that catch the ball. And Josh Johnson's going to be a quarterback that's running the ball for us. He's got 97th percentile speed. He's obviously up there in age, 35 years old, but he can run the ball. He's basically an even worse version than Tyler Huntley, but he's just as fast. I think Josh Johnson could run for 80 yards today. He's probably going to have at least 10 carries. So he scores 1 rushing touchdown, and he's going to provide value in DFS at his price. But the reason we're paying down for Josh Johnson is because it's going to allow us to pay up at the wide receiver position, which has been a very profitable strategy on DraftKings and FanDuel this season. All right, so we're paying down for Josh Johnson. Again, you can see the DraftKings lineup on the screen. If you come to the YouTube Live, link to that is in the TikTok bio. But yeah, we're going with Josh Johnson at QB. At running back, we're rocking with James Robinson. Again, I think you got to be starting James Robinson everywhere this week against the Jets. And we're also rocking with Justin Jackson against the Texans. Too good of a matchup for both those guys, for either of them to fly. At wide receiver, we're going with T. Higgins. Guys, the last time Joe Burrow played against the Ravens, he threw for 416 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jamar Chase had a big game that week. I think this week it's going to be T. Higgins with a big game against the Baltimore Ravens. So I'm rocking with T. Higgins in this DraftKings lineup. And then the reason we're paying down for some of these guys is so we can pay up for both Tyreek Hill and Cooper Kupp. Tyreek Hill and Cooper Kupp are as close to locks as you could possibly get in fantasy this week. First of all, Cooper Kupp. The man has gone over 90 yards in every single game except for 1 this season. Absolutely insane. The consistency and the ceiling that we've seen from Cooper Kupp this season, he still has a chance to have the best wide receiver season of all time. Like that's within his reach in these final 3 games of the season. So Cooper Kupp's just an absolute lock this week. Again, like he's going to go for 90 yards. But then Tyreek Hill his ceiling is astronomical. And I will not be surprised when Tyreek Hill finishes as the number 1 receiver this week. Travis Kelce's not playing in this game. I mean, Tyreek Hill is going to see at least 10 targets in this game for the Chiefs. And it's a good matchup against the Steelers. The Steelers secondary has struggled this season. They've also struggled against the run, but they've struggled against the pass too. The Chiefs at home, no Travis Kelce. Tyreek Hill has a chance to win weeks. And then I'm also flexing Odell Beckham Jr. in this lineup. I like the matchup for the Rams passing attack this week against the Vikings. The Vikings secondary, they've allowed the most fantasy points per game to receivers this season. That's why I'm rocking with both Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham Jr. I know Van Jefferson and Odell Beckham Jr., they share a lot of the same role, which does lower the floor a little bit for Odell, but the ceiling is still high. He's still seeing a lot of air yards in an offense that I expect to pass the ball very easily this week. Odell Beckham Jr., he's played over 70% of the snaps now in back-to-back games, and he's coming off a pretty disappointing game against the Seahawks. But the Rams controlled that game most of the way. And by the way, one of my locks of the day against the spread, you can see my favorite picks against the spread on the YouTube Live. It is that Rams game. The Rams are only 3-point favorites. They're only 3-point favorites against the Vikings. The Rams are better than the Vikings in basically every single way. And the Rams are starting to heat up. I think we see the Rams really start to establish themselves once again as the Super Bowl contender this week. All right, let me get back to some of the comments now in the TikTok Live, in the YouTube Live. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Again, if you haven't hit that follow button, that subscribe button yet, make sure you hit that. I really do appreciate it. And just thanks for spending some time with me this Sunday morning. I think time is the most valuable thing we have in life. So I appreciate you spending some time with me. WalterPicks has all of these guys similar. Weather doesn't look to be a factor in any games. No, Josh, Doesn't seem to be a factor in any games. We toss the Wi-Fi on for the TikTok live. DJ Moore, T. Higgins, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Justin Jackson. Start one. Who do you have? Yeah, so first of all, thanks for checking out the WalterPicks app. I do appreciate it. The WalterPicks app can help you answer all the start-sit questions that I'm seeing in the chat. So I love when you start the question off with, I already checked out these guys in the WalterPicks app. What do you think? I think that's the best way to go about things. All right, so we got DJ Moore. DJ Moore was questionable this week. He's going to play. It sounds like Sam Darnold's also going to play this week, and maybe more than we originally expected earlier in the week. And that, I think, is good news for DJ Moore, right? That should only be better for DJ Moore than what we've seen from Cam Newton. But then we have T. Higgins. I would play T. Higgins over DJ Moore this week. I would probably play Justin Jackson over DJ Moore as well. Clyde is close. Clyde does have a good matchup, 11-point favorites. But I think he's much closer with DJ Moore. I think this one's between T. Higgins and Justin Jackson. And honestly, I think T. Higgins has a really high ceiling. But you kind of have to go with Justin Jackson here. I would rock with Justin Jackson, especially if it's a PPR league against the Texans, worst ranked run defense in the NFL. So go rock with Justin Jackson. Are we starting Swift today? Yeah, Swift is a tough one. He's a tough one. I would play him over Devontae Freeman and Devontae Smith. I don't know what Devontae you're talking about. Let me get a number for CD receiving yards today. Thanks, man. You're the best. Ravi, thanks for tuning in, man. Yeah, I feel like you have to start Swift. I still have Swift in my top 5 running backs, but I got to be honest, I'm nervous. I'm nervous for Swift, and it feels like his floor is really low because it feels like a crowded backfield all of a sudden for the Detroit Lions. Craig Reynolds might still be involved. Jamal Williams is going to be active in this game. DeAndre Swift, though, he's leading the league in receiving yards per game at the running back position. You just have to start him. You kind of have to start him. Even with Jamal Williams and Craig Reynolds involved, DeAndre Swift has to be involved in this game, and he's playing. He's been too good not to start in fantasy. As for CD Lamb, his over-under is around 60 receiving yards today. I think he probably finishes around 70 yards. I say around 70 yards. His over-under for receptions I actually liked a lot. Wasn't quite good enough to put in the WalterPicks app based on Walter's projections, but his over-under receptions I think was 5.5. He's had at least 6 catches in 4 of his last 5. So I think he goes 6 catches, 70 yards today. Cousins or Tua? I think the Dolphins win. This week, and I would probably play Tua over Cousins. I'd probably play Tua over Cousins. It's definitely close. The Dolphins play on Monday night against the Saints. The Saints secondary has really, really been underwhelming this season, but they just had a weirdly amazing game against the Bucs. They've been a bottom 5 secondary adjusted for strength of opponent this season, but the Saints just blanked the Bucs. The Bucs had 0 points last week against the Saints. That game was absolutely shocking. I mean, I made a video about how shocking that game was. Just the fact that the Bucs scored 0 points was insane. And they didn't even have Sean Payton on the sidelines. But the Saints are starting Ian Book this week at quarterback. So I'm taking the Dolphins in that game, and I do like Tua, I think, a little bit more than Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins obviously up against the Rams this week at home. I do think Justin Jefferson can cook today, but in general, I actually think Tua is a safer option than Kirk Cousins. Swift or Javonte? Yeah, Raj, I feel like you got to go Swift over Javonte Williams. I do. I agree with Walter on this one, but it's definitely close. Jamar Chase or Javonte Williams, full PPR. Walter has Chase by 3. Yeah, it's got to be Jamar Chase, Luke. It's got to be Jamar Chase, and thanks for trying out the WalterPicks app, by the way. Again, if you haven't checked out the WalterPicks app, guys, link is in the TikTok bio, in the YouTube description. It's going to help you answer all your start-sit questions for free using machine learning. But we got to make our own decisions in fantasy football. That's the fun part. That's why the app gives you the info you need to make your own choice. But yeah, I would rock with Jamar Chase over Javonte Williams 100%. You got to rock with Jamar Chase. Guys, Jamar Chase had 200 yards the last time we played the Ravens. Henderson or Sony? Walter has Henderson favored. Yeah, I disagree with that one. I mean, Sony Michel outcarried him, I think, by a decent amount last week. So I would go with Sony Michel over Darrell Henderson. I would go with Sony Michel over Darrell Henderson just based on the last game, because that's kind of the biggest sample. That's kind of the only sample we have with both these guys active. And yeah, Sony Michel played 70% of the snaps, 18 carries. He scored a touchdown as well. No, he didn't, but he had 115 yards. You got to start Sony over Darrell. Javonte or Justin Jackson is not easy. Not easy. Antonio Gibson, I'm seeing questions about him too. I would play Justin Jackson over Antonio Gibson. I would play Justin Jackson over Javonte Williams this week too. I would. Because Justin Jackson is going to touch the ball more than both those guys. Someone's asking for the DraftKings lineup. I got that DraftKings lineup up on the screen in the YouTube Live if you want to see it. Thoughts on Damian Harris? Yeah, guys, Damian Harris is back. The Bills and the Patriots kind of going in opposite directions in terms of injuries and the COVID list. The Bills are without Cole Beasley. They're without Gabriel Davis in this game, which means that their starting receivers are going to be Stephon Diggs, Emmanuel Sanders, and probably Isaiah McKenzie. Meanwhile, the Patriots are going to get back Damian Harris, who hasn't played since that Bills game. But I don't think we can expect that much from Damian Harris in this game. The Bills' run defense is good. The Bills' run defense is very good. I mean, their pass defense has been good too, but they're without Tre'Davious White now. They've been a little bit worse since he's been out of the lineup. I don't think we can trust Damian Harris in fantasy this week. Thanks for a great season, man. Thanks, Clay Winbrad. I appreciate that, man. Devontae Freeman or Tony Pollard for flex. That one's tough. I want to say Tony Pollard, honestly. I'm officially in the camp of Zeke is probably washed. Like Zeke's really failed the eye test for like the past month and a half now. And Tony Pollard's dealing with a torn muscle in the bottom of his foot, and he still looks like far better than Zeke. It's a good matchup against Washington too, guys. That last Cowboys-Washington matchup wasn't very long ago. It was not that long ago. And in that game, Dallas absolutely obliterated Washington. Like Washington was struggling just to get a first down in that game. Taylor Heineke's back for this one. I'm nervous for Washington in this game. Like this game is going to be a tough game for Washington, and that's good news for Tony Pollard. I think I like him more than Devontae Freeman. This week. It's not a great matchup for Freeman against the Bengals with Josh Johnson starting. Was Duke Johnson a one-game wonder? Yeah, he probably was. Andreas. That was great to watch, though, last week. Duke Johnson's a baller, man. And it is kind of cool because Duke Johnson, I believe he is the all-time most rushing yards ever at the University of Miami. And now he's back in Miami, balling out. Like, maybe he just thrives in Miami. Maybe Duke Johnson just thrives in Miami. But no, it's probably a one-week wonder. I actually think Duke Johnson's good. I think he's been more talented than most people have realized throughout his career. He's been efficient since being in the NFL. He's obviously one of the better receiving backs in the league, and that's what he was used mostly as in Houston. But yeah, I like Duke Johnson a lot. He's probably a one-game wonder though. He's not going to see another 22 carries again, likely in his career. That's one way to put it. He was the number one running back last week, man. Absolutely insane. Rojo or Saquon? William, you got to go with Saquon. You have to go with Saquon over Ronald Jones. I'm sorry. I know you might want to play Ronald Jones. I have Saquon Barkley ranked number 9 heading into this week. I think Ronald Jones comes in at number 12. You got to start Saquon Barkley. Jake Fromm is starting for the Giants today. He actually looked good in his limited action in his last game. This is going to be his first start of his career. Saquon Barkley could easily see 20 touches in this game. I mean, he had 19 touches in his last game. Saquon has not had 20 points in a game this season since week 4. It's been since week 4 since Saquon has had over 20 points, but I think he could do it this week. Miles Sanders. Yeah, I mean, Miles Sanders is just like he is allergic to the end zone. Miles Sanders is allergic to the end zone. He has not scored a single touchdown this season. He's got back-to-back games, over 140 total yards, 0 touchdowns. Miles Sanders is allergic to the end zone, man. But he's probably going to go over another 75 yards today because he's very good. But in fantasy, like you just can't start guys that are this allergic to the end zone. You can't do it. Seahawks or Eagles at defense? Yeah, it's got to be the Eagles, man. It's got to be the Eagles. You got to trust the Eagles. Up against Jake Fromm and the Giants, the Eagles are a really good option this week. Who will be? Why is J-Rob the background? Who will be more likely better receiver at flex? I don't know what receivers you're talking about there. James Robinson's the background because I think you've got to start James Robinson this week. A few other guys that I think you've got to start if you're watching live on YouTube and on TikTok. I think you've got to start Cordero Patterson. this week. I know he had a bad week last week. It was the worst week of his season last week, but he gets the Lions this week. The Lions have been a bottom 5 rush defense this season. I also think you need to be starting Antonio Brown. There's no Mike Evans. There's no Chris Godwin. There's no Leonard Fournette. Even in a tough matchup against the Panthers, you got to be rocking pretty strongly with Antonio Brown this week, who to me is a top 10 wide receiver heading into week 16. Good tight ends to stream this week. I have Gronk. Yeah, I mean, Gronk is the number 1 tight end this week for me. So I don't think you need to stream any tight ends, even in a tough matchup against the Panthers. But the best streamers to me, Cole Kmet, if he's available. I like Foster Moreau this week too. He comes in at number 9, I think, for me at tight end. Sony Michel or Tony Pollard. Yeah, probably Sony Michel. CeeDee Lamb or Cordell Patterson. I'd probably go with CeeDee Lamb over Patterson too. Antonio Brown, who's going against an all-pro corner. Yeah, Antonio Brown, it's not a good matchup for Antonio Brown. Don't get me wrong here. It's not a good matchup for the Panthers passing attack. The Bucs passing attack. The Panthers pass defense has been much, much better than their run defense this season. But it doesn't really matter for Antonio Brown in fantasy because there's no Mike Evans, there's no Chris Godwin, there's no Leonard Fournette. Antonio Brown's still seeing at least 7 targets today. And we've seen Antonio Brown ball out against good defenses this season. And by all reports, Antonio Brown's looking like his normal self, and he's fully healthy. And so he can still have a good game in a bad matchup with the volume that we're expecting him to see. Antonio Brown has only played 5 games this season. He's gone over 13 points in 4 of those games. Against the Patriots, he saw 11 targets, 7 catches, 63 yards. Against Xavier Howard and the Dolphins, he saw 8 targets. He had 7 catches, 124 yards, 2 TDs. Against the Eagles, who have had a pretty good secondary this season, 13 targets, 93 yards, touchdown. Start Antonio Brown. I know it's not a good matchup, but you got to start Antonio Brown. There's just no way around it. Can Big Ben or Trevor Lawrence, Big Ben or Trevor Lawrence please help? Yeah, you cannot start Cam Newton. You cannot start Cam Newton this week. I've been on the Cam Newton hype train a little bit since he's returned because of his rushing. Like I've started him a few times on DraftKings, and he's done actually okay. He's done better in fantasy than real life, as Cam Newton has a tendency to do because of his rushing. But you can't start him this week. It sounds like Sam Darnold's going to play more than we expected at the beginning of the week. Like Sam Darnold might play more than half the game. So you can't start Cam Newton. And Trevor Lawrence against the Jets, Trevor Lawrence is another guy who's just been allergic to the end zone this season. He's been allergic to the end zone. I don't even know if he has 15 passing touchdowns on the season. He's played every game, every minute of every game. So I would go with Big Ben. I don't love Big Ben, but he's playing against the Chiefs. Should be a high-scoring game. And Big Ben has scored a lot of touchdowns this season. So I'd probably go with Big Ben. Palmer or Marquise Brown? Yeah, Hollywood Brown's so tough to trust with Josh Johnson starting. It's so tough to trust Hollywood Brown. And Josh Palmer should see an increased role. Mike Williams is out. But I still kind of feel like we got to go with Marquise Brown. I still feel like we go with Marquise Brown over Joshua Palmer. CEH or Rojo? Yeah, I'm going with Ronald Jones over Clyde. The biggest difference here is Ronald Jones isn't splitting half of his carries today. And Clyde probably is with Darrell Williams. Hey, Sam, for DFS, Antonio Brown, Keenan Allen, Diggs, Mixon, or Deontay, pick one. Yeah, I'm going with Antonio Brown, I think. I think Antonio Brown is going to be the guy probably rostered least on this list. Probably going to be the least rostered guy. I like Keenan Allen's floor a lot too, but Thomas, I'm assuming you're talking about a tournament here. And in tournaments, you got to shoot for the upside, and Antonio Brown's going to give you that upside. Stephon Diggs is an interesting one this week too. We know the Patriots are very good at taking away opposing team's best player, although that narrative didn't bode very well for people who were saying that against Jonathan Taylor a week ago. The Patriots taking away the best player narrative took a shot right in the heart last week. Jonathan Taylor absolutely going off, as he does. And Stephon Diggs absolutely can go off in this game too, but I would not count on it. I have a feeling that the Patriots will make someone other than Stephon Diggs beat them. All right, we got a bench one here from Elijah. DeAndre Swift, Javonte Williams, Rashad Penny, or Rojo. Yeah, it's Penny. It's got to be Rashad Penny. I said this last week after calling the Rashad Penny breakout game against the Texans. I warned us all last week. Rashad Penny is in very clear trap territory. The same thing about Deontay Foreman on Thursday night. He actually scored a touchdown and still didn't even eclipse 8 fantasy points. How do you score a touchdown and you don't even get 8 points? He had under 15 yards. Deontay Foreman on Thursday night. Luckily, he did score a touchdown, so he still finished with like 6 or 7 points. But yeah, Rashad Penny's in dangerous territory. He's in dangerous territory. He played much worse against a better run defense last week against the Rams. He only had 11 carries in that game, 44 yards, no touchdowns. He had 2 catches. He played under 50% of the snaps, which wasn't the case for him back in week 14. I'm nervous for Rashad Penny in this game. I think Penny's the one to bench. Does he still have a good ceiling? Yes, he does. He has breakaway run potential. He's very fast. But he's by no means a lock. And honestly, I'm starting to get the sense that we already saw Rashad Penny's best game of his career. Lockett or Harris for flex. Yeah, it's got to be Lockett. It's got to be Lockett over Harris. I'm nervous about Damian Harris this week. Hey, Sam, I just woke up. How do you feel about starting Knox over Schultz because Gabe Davis and Cole Beasley are both out? Ray, good morning, man. I've been up for a while, and I got to be honest with you. I don't think there's been a week where I've had to update the WalterPicks app more than I have this week. I mean, there's 200 players who have been on the COVID list in, I think, the last just couple of weeks. And it's had an absolutely crazy impact on fantasy. And one of these things is the Bills' offense today. The Bills has no Gabriel Davis. The Bills have no Cole Beasley. And that does bump up Dawson Knox. It absolutely does. But it's still not a good matchup for Dawson Knox. The Patriots have been a top 3 defense against tight ends this season. So it's hard for me to get that excited about Dawson Knox with how good the Patriots have done against tight ends. Though I will say, Dawson Knox, in terms of his touchdown upside this week, it's top 5 among tight ends. Like, he has a better touchdown upside than even Dalton Schultz. But the Cowboys get a matchup against Washington today. And Washington has also been pretty good against tight ends. They've been pretty good against tight ends. I would not knock you for starting Dawson Knox over Dalton Schultz. And I would argue that Knox has a higher ceiling than Schultz. I have him lower in my rankings, though, because I think Schultz is still the better overall play. But I would argue that Knox has a higher ceiling with the injuries for the Bills. Pick 2 for high ceiling: Deontay Johnson, Lockett, Antonio Brown, Waddle. Yeah, you can't bench Deontay Johnson still. You're just not allowed to. Like, regardless of ceiling, like maybe Tyler Lockett and Antonio Brown have a higher ceiling than Deontay Johnson, just slightly. But you still have to start Deontay Johnson because he still had at least 10 targets in every single game but 2 this season. He's coming off arguably his worst game of the season last week. I would not expect him to have back-to-back bad games. He's gone over 70 yards in 5 of his last 6. He's only gone under 70 yards like 3 or 4 times this whole season. So start Deontay Johnson. And then after that, I'd probably go Antonio Brown. I'd probably go Antonio Brown over Tyler Lockett. Justin Jackson or St. Brown. Yeah, St. Brown's really in very scary trap territory. Definitely I'm going with Justin Jackson over Amon-Ra St. Brown because Tim Boyle is starting for the Lions now. Again, talking about the COVID news, Jared Goff was ruled out. I think it was yesterday. Honestly, there's been so much news. It's hard for me to even remember when everything has happened. But Jared Goff is out. Tim Boyle's in. So Amon-Ra St. Brown gets a huge question mark heading into this week. Like, he's been balling out. He's gone over 70 yards 3 straight games, over 13 points 3 straight games. He's gone over 20 points 2 of his last 3 games. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, like, maybe he's not seeing the same type of role this week with Tim Boyle. It's very hard to know. Plus, DeAndre Swift is back this week. That he could easily end up leading the Lions in receiving. All right, pick 1. Noah Fant, Hunter Henry, Jared Cook. Got to be Hunter Henry. It's got to be Hunter Henry. The Bills have been good against tight ends this season too. I actually have Jared Cook ranked as my number 10 tight end, and I don't have Hunter Henry in my top 10. So it's Jared Cook or Hunter Henry. With Mike Williams out, I guess Jared Cook is a little bit better of an option. And he probably does have a better matchup too. So I guess I would say Jared Cook is a slight lead over Hunter Henry, then Noah Fant. I mean, you just can't trust Noah Fant at this point. Sony Michel, Barrios, or Jared Cook. Got to be Sony. It's got to be Sony. I mean, Sony had 22 carries last week. Are you starting Mark Andrews this week? Yeah, of course. Mark Andrews is my number 2 tight end, only after Rob Gronkowski. And I know it's not going to feel good. Josh Johnson starting at QB. Like, it's really tough to trust Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews. Josh Johnson cannot throw the ball. Like, he really can't. But you still have to start Mark Andrews because the tight end position is so bleak. It's just so bleak. Like, with no Travis Kelce, no Darren Waller, George Kittle already played. Mark Andrews is a top 3 tight end, even with Josh Johnson throwing the ball. That's just the bottom line. Do you have a lock bet today. Yeah, I do. I do have a lock today. And the lock today, if you come to the YouTube Live, I'll pull it up on the screen. Again, we're live on TikTok and YouTube. Link to the YouTube Live is in the TikTok bio. But the free prop pick of the day is James Robinson, man. James Robinson over 17.5 receiving yards. This line should be at least 20. It should be at least 20. The Jets have been destroyed by running backs through the air this season. They've been by far the worst at stopping running backs in terms of receiving yards this season. James Robinson, he hasn't gone over 15 receiving yards since week 12. But, again, guys, he's up against the Jets today. And the Jets have allowed the second most receiving yards per game to running backs this season. 18 different running backs. Do the math. We're in week 16. 18 different running backs this season have gone over 19 receiving yards against the Jets. That's by far the most in the NFL. James Robinson played 82% of the snaps last week, which is by far the most he's played in a little over a month. And it coincided with the departure of Urban Meyer. It's the most he's played since week 6. He also saw 6 targets in his last game, which ties his season high. So I got Walter, and Walter has James Robinson projected for over 25 yards through the air today. I think he could easily go over 30 yards through the air. So the free prop pick of the day is James Robinson, over 17.5 receiving yards. And over on Prize Picks, you can get this at, I think, 13.5. So that's the free prop pick of the day. And hopefully you all cash on the free prop pick Thursday night. Deebo Samuel, his total yards was over under 83.5. He went for like 180. So hopefully we all cash on that too. Tyreek or Keenan. Yeah, you just cannot bench Tyreek Hill. Cannot bench Tyreek Hill this week. You can't do it. You just can't do it. The ceiling is way too high for Tyreek Hill with no Travis Kelce. The ceiling is somehow even higher than usual for Tyreek Hill. CeeDee Lamb or Adam Thielen. Yeah, Swift is out. Is this true? Let me see this. I haven't. But usually the chat is ahead of news like this. But I always gotta confirm. Tyreek out. No, Tyreek's out. Not out. Tyreek was confirmed in. DeAndre Swift is inactive. Thank you in the chat for calling that one out. Tyreek is not inactive. Travis Kelce is inactive. DeAndre Swift is inactive now. So get Swift out of your lineups. This is breaking news on this Week 16 Sunday morning live stream. DeAndre Swift was expected to play today, but he's now inactive. He was my number 4 ranked running back before this news. Projected for 17 points. He leads the league in receiving yards per game at the running back position. But he's out today, which is a bump for Craig Reynolds. Guys, Craig Reynolds is coming back from dead yet again. If Craig Reynolds has his 3rd straight best game of his season, I think I got to buy a Craig Reynolds jersey. I think I'm doing it. But DeAndre Swift is out. DeAndre Swift is out this week, and that is a bump for Jamal Williams, who's back this week. Jamal Williams is back this week. But yeah, you got to get DeAndre Swift out of your lineups, and I still don't think Jamal Williams is like a must start or anything. It's a good matchup against the Falcons, though. And I'm just updating the projections now. Jamal Williams is projected for 10 points now. 10 points. Based on our machine learning algorithm, Walter, who, again, you can download the WalterPicks app, gives us the most accurate projections out there for completely free right now on the iOS App Store and on the Google Play Store. Android people, this is not a drill. We are on the Play Store now. And we can help you make your start-sit decisions this week in the WalterPicks app. Yeah, so Jamal Williams gets a slight bump up to 10 points. Craig Reynolds, I think he's projected around 5 now. I actually don't even know if Craig Reynolds is in the WalterPicks app yet. Man, I'm not even kidding. I think I'll buy Craig Reynolds jersey if he goes off this week. How do you feel about Duke Johnson Jr.? Yeah, I think it was a one-hit wonder. One-hit wonder, I think, for Duke Johnson. Who, by the way, I'm a big Duke Johnson fan. I've thought Duke Johnson has been one of the more talented players in the league compared to like what people viewed him as. I was kind of surprised how long he was a free agent. He's a good receiver. He's been efficient in the NFL. But I mean, maybe Duke Johnson just balls out in Miami because he went to University of Miami. He's their all-time leading rusher. And in his first game with Miami Dolphins, he turns 22 carries into an absolute dominant performance where he finished Week 15 as the number 1 overall running back in fantasy. We got a question here from Brett, who's digging real deep in the fantasy football semifinals. Thinking about Josh Reynolds or thinking about Duke Johnson. And I think this one, you got to have to go with Duke Johnson. You got to go with Duke Johnson here. You can't start Josh Reynolds. Tim Boyle is starting for the Lions. you can't start Josh Reynolds. Like, it's a good matchup for Josh Reynolds and for Amon-Ra St. Brown. But with Tim Boyle starting at quarterback, you just can't start. Sam, I've been on here for an hour. Thanks for sticking around, man. Please answer Russell Gage or Hollywood Brown. Yeah, it's got to be Gage. It's got to be Gage. With Josh Johnson starting at quarterback, you got to be really concerned about Gage and Andrews. Like, I think you have to start Mark Andrews in most situations. And in a lot of situations, you kind of have to be thinking about Marquise Brown too. But I'm not starting him over Gage. Again, like, Josh Johnson, not good news for Marquise Brown. DJ Moore or Mooney this week. LOL, yeah, Mac. DJ Moore is who you got to go with. With Nick Foles starting, I think I would go with DJ Moore. And Sam Darnold's apparently going to be playing a little bit more this week too. I think that's good news for DJ Moore. Hey, Sam, Walter been killing it for the props this week. Yeah, Gabriel, he has. Really the last couple of weeks, Walter's had over 70% accuracy over the last week and a half on the player props. He went 2 for 3 yesterday. I mean, the Michael Pittman prop, that was a layup, especially after that game against the Patriots where he was ejected. You just kind of knew the next week Michael Pittman's prop was going to crush it. Walter was all over that one. And he's hit 2 QB props this week too. Ryan Tannehill and Baker Mayfield, both their props on PrizePicks were set at 200 yards. 200 yards is not a lot for any quarterback. But neither of them played well, and they both cleared those props pretty easily. All right, but we have had a couple close calls. We had, I think, 2 props maybe just this week that won by just a yard. DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett? Yeah, I'm going Metcalf over Lockett, but it's definitely close. It's definitely close. Sam, I meant Craig Reynolds, not Josh Reynolds. Oh my God, Brett. That's actually it's actually tougher now, but I think I still stand by Duke Johnson here because Jamal Williams is back now. Like, that's not good for Craig Reynolds. It's not good for Craig Reynolds that Jamal Williams is back. Javonte Williams or DJ Moore? That one's tough too, man. Javonte Williams has been balling out. I think he's gone over 100 yards in each of his last 2 games. Obviously, Melvin Gordon's going to be involved. It's a good matchup, though, for Javonte Williams. The Raiders have been a bottom 5 defense against running backs this season. So you got to feel pretty good about Javonte Williams' floor and ceiling. Like, his floor is lowered because Melvin Gordon's going to be involved. But honestly, I think I would go with him over DJ Moore. I think I'd rock with him over DJ Moore. I think you ride with Javonte Williams over DJ Moore. Matt Breida is a healthy scratch for Week 16 against the Patriots. That's good news because Zach Moss is definitely worse than Matt Breida. So Pats fans should be happy about that. Zach Moss is I don't really understand how he's been used this season by the Bills. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin officially out for the Buccaneers, as is Leonard Fournette. Jameson Lee Crowder inactive for the Jets. I mean, a really elite season for what could be Jameson Lee Crowder's last season as a Jet. Henderson or Sony? It's got to be Sony over Henderson. I know the WalterPicks app disagrees with me on this one. Walter disagrees with me on Darrell Henderson versus Sony Michel, but I'm going with Sony. Sony is just the guy who had more carries last game. Like that, it's really that simple for him. Swift out. Yep, DeAndre Swift is out. This was breaking news just a few minutes ago. DeAndre Swift is out this week. Get DeAndre Swift out of your lineups. Penny or Palmer? Sam, help. This is not an easy one either. It's not an easy one. Josh Palmer should be involved. Mike Williams is out. Justin Herbert is Walter's number 1 quarterback this week too. Like, there's reason to have some hope for Josh Palmer. There is. And his ceiling is absolutely higher than Rashad Penny's. And the Seahawks have a much better, are up against the Bears this week. The Bears have been a much better pass defense. Much better run defense than pass defense this season. I'm fine with going with Josh Palmer over Rashad Penny. Like, Rashad Penny, what is Rashad Penny's ceiling in this game? Like, realistically, it's probably around 15 points. It's probably around 15 points for Penny. And I'd say Palmer's ceiling is higher than that. I would argue Penny's floor is a little bit higher. Like, he's probably going to see at least 8 carries. But yeah, I think I'm fine going Palmer over Penny. Damian Harris. Yeah, Damian Harris is back, which I'm not that excited about from a fantasy football perspective against the Bills. The Bills' run defense has been really good. And obviously, Ramondre Stevenson is still going to be involved. Who should I replace for Travis Kelce? Yeah, guys, Travis Kelce out this week. Making the tight end. Let me pull up my top 10 tight ends on the YouTube Live. Again, we're live on TikTok and YouTube right now. And on the YouTube Live, you can see my top 10 rankings, every single position, including tight ends. And you'll see at tight end, like there's basically some streamers in my top 10 tight ends this week because that's how bad the tight end position is heading into this week. We already had George Kittle play. I'm pretty sure he had a pretty bad game this week too. And Kelsey's out. Darren Waller's out again. I mean, RIP Darren Waller, anyone that had him. I know we have one team in the WalterPicks 32-person fantasy league that's in the toilet bowl with Darren Waller, so he's probably freaking out. But I think Foster Moreau is a pretty good streamer. He's available in 90% of leagues. I don't hate CJ Uzoma. The last time Joe Burrow played against the Ravens, he threw for 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, so you could do worse than CJ Uzoma. I also like Jared Cook, too, if he's available with no Mike Williams. Jamal Williams or Amon-Ra St. Brown. Yeah, I just can't get myself to trust Amon-Ra St. Brown with Tim Boyle. How can we trust Tim Boyle? Amon-Ra St. Brown's been balling out, man, but if the fate of my fantasy season's on the line, I'm going with Jamal Williams over Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I'm not going to feel great about it. Pick 3, non-PPR, Madison, Jackson, Patterson, Antonio Brown, Allen. Yeah, in a non-PPR league, I always skew running backs over receivers. So you got to go with these first 2. Honestly, I think it's the first 3. In a non-PPR league, I think I'd go with these first 3 guys. I'd argue that these first 3 guys have a better chance at the touchdown than both of the receivers. In a PPR league, though, I'm definitely starting Antonio Brown and Keenan Allen over all 3 of these guys. I'm probably going to start Alexander Madison, though, with them. Like in a PPR league, I would rank these guys probably Keenan Allen number 1, Madison number 2, AB number 3, Jackson number 4, Patterson number 5. In a non-PPR league, though, I think I probably rank them Madison number 1, Patterson number 2, Jackson number 3, Allen number 4, AB number 5. So the scoring definitely matters. All 5 of these guys are really good options, though, Jordan, this week. I like all 5 of these guys. Like in general, I don't want to bench any of these guys. You got to start Clyde. You got to start Clyde over Michael Carter. You can't start Michael Carter this week. I'm sorry. He's been good. But the top 10 rankings, they're going to be scrolling at the bottom of the screen. He's been like, Michael Carter's good. But how can we be confident in the Jets to give him the ball in this game after he just scored 3 points last week? He had 9 touches, I think like 30 yards or 20 yards. I think he had 1 catch, 8 carries, 20 total yards, 3 points for Michael Carter last week. And he's the most talented player in the Jets offense today. There's no Jameson Lee Crowder for the Jets even today. Like they're really trotting out a very, very untalented group of players on offense, just in general. And Michael Carter is by far the most talented on the offense. But this is a game where the Jets and the Jaguars are both incentivized to lose the game. They're both competing for the number 1 pick. So why? There's also, this feels like an additional incentive for the Jets not to give Michael Carter the ball today. Love the app, Sam. We got a defense question here. Appreciate you checking out the app, by the way, guys. If you haven't checked out the WalterPicks app yet, in the iOS App Store and the Google Play Store now, check it out. It's completely free to download. We're giving away basically unlimited free start-sit comparisons in the WalterPicks app for the rest of the fantasy playoffs as well. You can compare any 2 players' boom and bust projections and machine learning median projections for every player, every game. The best projections you can find to make your best start-sit decisions. So check out the app in the TikTok bio, in the YouTube description. We got a defense question here from Philip, asking about the Bucs defense. The Bucs big favorites today. We're asking about the Dolphins defense against the Saints. I like the Dolphins defense against the Saints. They're starting someone named Ian Book. I think that's his last name. Ian Book, I think it is. Yeah, Ian Book, who's like a worse version of Taysom Hill. Everything I've read and seen about Ian Book is basically somehow a worse version of Taysom Hill. Like he's not quite as fast as Taysom Hill, but he's still fast. And he's an even worse thrower than Taysom Hill is. So, yeah, you got to kind of like the Dolphins defense. And that's one of the reasons I have the Dolphins as a lock against the spread this week. Again, if you come to the YouTube Live, link is in the TikTok bio. You can see my favorite picks against the spread. I got 3 locks this week. My locks have been 60% accurate this season. The Bucs against the Panthers is pretty good, but I think I like the Dolphins and the Eagles defense better. Like the Eagles defense is another defense that you can really trust a lot this week against Jake Fromm and the Giants. So I do think Jake Fromm could potentially be the best quarterback on the Giants. Like that's definitely possible. So I think Dolphins are probably the best. OBJ, Antonio Brown, Terry McLaurin, Amari Cooper, pick 2. Yeah, you have to start Antonio Brown. You have to start Antonio Brown this week. You have to start him. It's not a good matchup for Antonio Brown. The Panthers' defense has been good. Their secondary has been good. They have all pro corners on their team. But there's no Mike Evans, and there's no Chris Godwin, and there's no Leonard Fournette. And Antonio Brown, has played 5 games this season. He's gone over 15 points in 4 of those 5 games. And he's seen at least 8 targets in 4 of those 5 games as well. The matchup doesn't matter. Antonio Brown's going to see targets. You got to start Antonio Brown in half PPR and PPR league. After that, I think it's much more difficult, a much more difficult question. Like OBJ, Terry McLaurin, Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper is just so tough to trust right now. I think you're going to have to bench him. Taylor Heineke's back for the Washington too. And McLaurin has kind of an interesting matchup against Dallas, who has been good defensively at forcing turnovers, but they've also allowed a lot of yards. But McLaurin hasn't had a 20-point game since week 11. It's been tough sledding for Terry McLaurin. And OBJ has a pretty exciting matchup this week too against the Vikings. The Vikings have allowed the most fantasy points per game to receivers this season, which is why I would go with Odell Beckham Jr. over Terry McLaurin in week 16. Should I start Javonte Williams? Yeah, Jacob, you can. You definitely can start. You definitely can start. He's one of the most talented running backs in the league. And even though he's going to split some work with Melvin Gordon, you absolutely can trust him this week. Thoughts on Patterson this week? Yeah, I think you need to start Cordell Patterson. I do. I think you need to start Cordell Patterson this week. Patterson is coming off his worst game of the season. And I know a lot of people are going to consider benching him. A lot of people will bench him. I think it's a mistake. And I think it's a mistake. He's playing against the Lions, the Tim Boyle-led Lions. The Falcons are 7-point favorites in this game. They have not been favored by this much in a game this season. And Cordell Patterson is still the pretty clear lead back for the Falcons. He played actually his highest snap percentage that he's played in quite some time last week. And even in his worst game of the season, you left the game feeling like pretty clearly Patterson's still the number 1 running back. He played 66% of the snaps. That was the most he's played since week 7. He only had 11 carries, but 5 of those came in the red zone. He's had back-to-back games with 5 red zone carries. I think Cordell Patterson could easily go 100 yards and a touchdown today against the Lions. You got to start him. You got to start him. His floor is pretty good. His ceiling is definitely high. Justin Jackson or Adam Thielen? Yeah, I would just rock with Justin Jackson. Adam Thielen, the touchdown machine himself, is back. We were joking a couple live streams ago that even from the sideline, Adam Thielen's projected stat line was 0 catches, 0 yards, with 2 touchdowns. All this guy does is score touchdowns. Like, he is one of the most prolific touchdown scorers in the history of the NFL. That's how good Adam Thielen has been at scoring touchdowns. And he's up against the Rams this week in what I think will be a high-scoring game. But I still think Justin Jackson's just safer than Adam Thielen. Like, the bottom line is he's just a safer bet than Adam Thielen. Like, Adam Thielen's probably scoring a touchdown. But I'm still going to go with Justin Jackson here against the Texans. Justin Jackson, Alexander Mattison, Miles Sanders, Jalen Waddle, or Hollywood Brown. Pick 2 running backs and 1 flex spot. You got to win. Yeah, you got to start these first 2 guys. You start these first 2, Justin Jackson and Alexander Mattison, over Miles Sanders. Is Jalen Waddle playing today? I'm pretty sure he's not. I'm pretty sure Jalen Waddle's out. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong there. Was he on the COVID list before and now he's not? And the amount of injuries we're trying to keep up with here are just insane. Let me pull up Jalen Waddle really quickly. Jalen Waddle has come off the COVID list. So Jalen Waddle will play. Sounds like he will play Monday. So correction there. Jalen Waddle is playing. I still wouldn't play him over Justin Jackson or Madison, though. And you can't start Hollywood Brown over either of those guys, too. Josh Johnson is starting at quarterback for the Ravens. I'm actually rocking with Josh Johnson in my DraftKings lineup. But, guys, Josh Johnson can't throw. At least not well. So you can't start Hollywood Brown. You still can start Mark Andrews because tight ends are just so bad. But you can't start Hollywood Brown over Justin Jackson or Alexander Mattison. And Miles Sanders is just allergic to the end zone. You can't start him over Justin Jackson or Mattison, too. In the flex slot, honestly, I would probably go with Sanders, though, over Waddle and Hollywood Brown. Waddle's interesting, man. Waddle's a tough one. He's a tough one because the Saints secondary hasn't been very good. So I think it's between Sanders and Waddle, though. Guys, we are live on YouTube and TikTok right now. Thanks so much for tuning in. On the YouTube Live, you can see my top 10 rankings, every single position. And I'll pull up my DraftKings lineup one more time. Josh Johnson, says Jared. Yeah, we're rocking with Josh Johnson in the DraftKings lineup just because he's priced so low. And what you can count on from Josh Johnson today is at least 50 rushing yards. It's at least 50 rushing yards. And it gives him a pretty good floor in fantasy. We could also see a pretty big collapse from Josh Johnson, who, again, I don't think can throw the ball very well. But either way, Josh Johnson's just too good of a value on DraftKings. DJ Moore, Devontae Smith, or Madison, or Michael Carter at Flex. Got your subscription for Christmas. Chase, man, thank you so much. Thank you so much. The WalterPicks, subscribing to the WalterPicks app is the number one way you can possibly support me. All the subscribers to WalterPicks are the reason I'm able to do this every Sunday morning. It's my full-time thing, managing and producing content for the WalterPicks app and making sure the app is just going to help you dominate all things fantasy sports and player props. And we've been dominating player props in the WalterPicks app over the last few weeks. This is a good question, though. DJ Moore, Devontae Smith, Madison, Michael Carter at Flex. Devontae Smith, guys, I really believe Devontae Smith has the talent to be a top 2 rookie receiver. Like, I think he's in the top 2 still, talent-wise. But, I mean, he's just on such a run-heavy team. The Eagles run the ball so much that there's not enough volume to go around for Devontae Smith to have any reasonable floor. He's now gone under 10 points in 3 straight games. And this is another game. The Eagles are big favorites against Jake Fromm and the Giants. Like, Devontae Smith could easily see 5 or fewer targets in this game. The answer to this question is definitely Alexander Madison. It has to be Alexander Madison. You see my top 10 running backs on the YouTube Live. Again, link to the YouTube Lives in the TikTok bio. You can see Alexander Madison's in my top 10. Like, he really does get the ball a lot in games without Dalvin Cook. And Dalvin Cook is out this week and possibly next week too. Is Ridley going to play? Oh, man. I don't think so. Like, next year, hopefully. It certainly doesn't seem like he's going to come back this season. But it's really hard to know. Like, honestly, with the Calvin Ridley situation, your guess is kind of as good as mine. You know, we've had no real update for quite some time now on the Calvin Ridley situation. He's still young. Like, Calvin Ridley, still 27 years old, in his prime, really. Like, he can definitely come back and do well, but I don't know when he's going to play again. Do you know any sleepers because Swift is out? Yeah, I got you. I got you, Jason. There are some sleepers this week at the running back position. Like, most of them have probably been added. Justin Jackson, Alexander Madison, Ronald Jones, they're all top 15 running backs this week. All 3 of those guys are top 15 options. Justin Jackson, Ronald Jones, and Alexander Madison. I would rank those guys as Madison number 1, Jackson number 2, Ronald Jones number 3, but all of them are good options. If none of them are available, then you probably want to go explore Jamal Williams, who is the direct backup to DeAndre Swift. I'm nervous about Gibson. I am. I'm very nervous about Gibson. The last we heard is there's some optimism that Antonio Gibson will play this week. Never mind how much he will play or how well he will do. Just some optimism that he'll be able to play because he re-aggravated a toe injury in his last game. But J.D. McKissick's also out this week, which to me brings us up to another sleeper running back who is Jarrett Patterson. Jarrett Patterson for Washington is a pretty good sleeper running back this week with the reports about Antonio Gibson maybe not being able to play. And yeah, I would play Jamal Williams over Antonio Gibson. I'm definitely playing Justin Jackson over Melvin Gordon as well. Definitely. Justin Jackson's going to get more touches than Melvin Gordon this week. Guys, if you're watching live on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Let's not let this be our last fantasy football matchup of the season. We got to make it to the finals. For those of you in the semis, guys, this is what it's all about, man. We got to make the optimal decisions this morning so that we can make the finals next week. Hey, I love the app. Thanks, man. Do Gordon or Robinson? Yeah, definitely Robinson. It has to be Robinson. Again, I think you really like almost all situations. I think you need to be starting James Robinson this week. James Robinson's the only player in this Jaguars-Jets game that I have any confidence in because he played 82% of the snaps last week, the most he's played since week 7. And this coincided with the departure of Urban Meyer. And so we can expect another 80% of the snaps for James Robinson today against a Jets defense that has been destroyed by running backs this season. They've allowed the second most fantasy points per game to running backs. They've allowed the second most receiving yards per game to running backs. They've allowed the most running backs to go over 20 receiving yards this season. 18 different running backs have done it against the Jets. So yeah, I like James Robinson a lot. He's a top 5 running back option for me this week. T. Higgins or Justin Jackson. I like both those guys a lot. I do. I like T. Higgins a lot. Again, the last time that the Bengals played the Ravens, Joe Burrow threw for 416 yards and 3 touchdowns. And a lot of that ended up going to Jamar Chase, who I think finished with around 200 yards. But I think T. Higgins has that same type of upside in this game. I still think Justin Jackson's probably a little bit safer than T. Higgins. There's a little bit of risk in this Ravens-Bengals game. With Josh Johnson starting, there's a chance the Bengals just walk over the Ravens. Definitely there's a chance that happens. But I'm still rocking with Josh Johnson in my DraftKings lineup because I think even if the Bengals walk over the Ravens, like Josh Johnson's probably going to score at least 10 fantasy points. The Ravens offense is built to run the ball at the quarterback position, which is why I like Josh Johnson as price. Terry McLaurin or Amon-Ra St. Brown. Yeah, I would go McLaurin over St. Brown. Jalen Waddle versus Russell Gage. That one's close. I would probably go with Jalen Waddle over Gage. Love the app, but need to pick one. Saquon, DJ Moore, Justin Jackson, and PPR. Yeah, you can't start DJ Moore over Saquon or Justin Jackson. You can't. Saquon versus Justin Jackson is not an easy decision, though. And personally, I'm going with Saquon Barkley. I think you definitely can go. I think you definitely can go with Justin Jackson over Saquon. You can. But I'm rocking with Saquon over Justin Jackson. Saquon's like really just very tough to trust in fantasy these days. The last time he scored 20 points, I think, was week 6. Sorry, week 4. Week 4 was the last time he scored 20 points. But he did finish as a top 12 running back in week 14 against the Chargers. And the Eagles' defense has been better against the pass than the run. And Jake Fromm is starting. Like Saquon's seeing at least 15 carries today. He's had at least 15 carries in back-to-back games. So we know Saquon Barkley's got a good chance at least 15 carries. And like you just can't start Justin Jackson over him when that's the case. We're really going to bench Saquon when we know he's going to get at least 15 carries against a defense that's way worse against the run than they are against the pass. You can't bench him. You can't bench him. As much as it, like the concerns are valid for Saquon, he's still gone over 9 points in each of his last 5 games because he's seen consistent volume. Like the floor for him is 9. The ceiling for him is still 30. It's still his ceiling. So yeah, I'm starting Saquon. I'm starting Saquon over Justin Jackson. I'm starting Saquon over Ronald Jones as well. I think Alexander Madison's a much closer one. I actually have Madison ranked one spot ahead of Saquon in my rankings. Russell Gage or Scary Terry. Yeah, that one's not easy yet, but I'm going Scary Terry. I'm going Scary Terry over Russell Gage. And but you got to take my Russell Gage takes with a huge grain of salt, guys. And by the way, if you've been watching me for long enough, you know I'm very, very transparent when I'm wrong about things. And I've been so wrong about Russell Gage. Week after week after week, I'm telling people to bench Russell Gage, and he just continues to prove me wrong. He's had at least 18 points now in 3 of his last 4 games. He hasn't had a game under 10 points in the last month. He's had at least 60 yards in 4 straight games. He's seeing consistent targets. And he gets the Lions today. And the Lions are not a scary defense. I do think Cordell Patterson's going to have a good game against the Lions. That's why I think you have to start Cordell Patterson. But, yeah, Russell Gage, I've been wrong about him, man. I've been wrong about him. But I still want to start Terry McLaurin over Russell Gage. I do. Taylor Heineke's back, too. And it's not a horrible matchup for McLaurin against the the Cowboys, excuse me. Williams or Reynolds? I'm assuming you mean Jamal Williams. And, yeah, I just can't trust Josh Reynolds or Amon-Ra St. Brown with Tim Boyle starting. I can't trust him. I can't trust those receivers. So I'm going with Jamal Williams. Like at least one of them is probably going to prove me wrong, Amon-Ra St. Brown or Josh Reynolds, but I'm benching both of them this week for Jamal Williams. I'm seeing some Craig Reynolds questions in the TikTok live. You can't start Craig Reynolds. You can't start Craig Reynolds. Don't do it. Don't start Craig Reynolds. I'm sorry. I've been wrong about him too each of the last 2 weeks. But even with DeAndre Swift out, Jamal Williams is back. Like Craig Reynolds is not a safe option. And I don't think his ceiling is that high either. I'm not starting Craig Reynolds. Happy holidays, Sam. Thanks, Ricky. Josh Johnson or Derek Carr? Yeah, you got to go Derek Carr over Josh Johnson. Like I like Josh Johnson. I'm playing him on DraftKings because I like his rushing floor, but I'm still going to rock with Derek Carr over him. And Derek Carr actually doesn't have a bad matchup this week either. I think Derek Carr comes in as my number 9 or 10 quarterback. Let me pull my quarterbacks up again. We're live on TikTok and YouTube, guys. And on the YouTube live, which you can go to very quickly if you're watching live on TikTok because it's in the TikTok bio, you see my top 10 rankings every position. And you'll see in my top 10, I do have Derek Carr ranked number 9. I have him ranked number 9 heading into the rest of the games this week. Diggs or Barkley? Yeah, you got to go Diggs. You got to go Diggs over Barkley. Help fantasy, man. Non-PPR pick 3, Zeke, Gibson, Hilaire, Gaskin, Jones. God, I feel like you got to go Ronald Jones. I feel like you kind of have to go Zeke as well. And I'd probably go Clyde number 3. Antonio Gibson's risky coming off this toe injury that he re-aggravated. Again, the latest report about Antonio Gibson is that there is some optimism. This is the exact quote, some optimism that Antonio Gibson will even be able to play this week. There's only some that he'll even be able to play. So it's just tough to trust Antonio Gibson with that report. And Gaskin is going to split work with Duke Johnson as well. And the Saints defense is way, way, way better against the run than they are against the pass. One of the premier pass funnel defenses in the league. So you can't trust Gaskin this week either. So I think you go Zeke, Clyde, Ronald Jones. Again, guys, we are live on YouTube and TikTok. If you are watching live on YouTube, smash the like button. Hit the subscribe button too. I really do appreciate that. The free prop pick of the day, by the way, is James Robinson's receiving prop. If you guys haven't hit this yet, you got to take a chance on the James Robinson receiving prop. There's too many reasons to. There's just too many reasons. I will try to get to as many of the comments as I can over the next 40 minutes of the stream. The last 40 minutes of the live stream, we're getting into the witching hour of the WalterPicks live stream, where this is the real time. Losses become wins, and wins become losses in fantasy football, because this is when you make the crucial start-sit decisions in your leagues. Later, during the red zone witching hour, we'll find out if we actually won or lost, but this is when it really happens. This is when it really happens. But yeah, the free prop pick today, it's James Robinson, and it's over 16.5, 17.5 receiving yards, whatever you can find it for. You can actually find it at 13.5 over on Prize Picks. But James Robinson, he hasn't gone over 15 receiving yards since week 12, but he should get back on track as a receiver in a week 16 matchup against the Jets. The Jets have allowed the second most receiving yards per game to running backs this season. 18 different running backs have gone for 20-plus yards through the air against the Jets. That's by far the most in the NFL. 18 different running backs have at least 19 receiving yards against the Jets this season. James Robinson played 82% of the snaps last week for the Jaguars in their first game without Urban Meyer. That was the most that he's played since week 6, and he tied his season high with 6 targets. So yeah, I'm riding with James Robinson over 17.5 receiving yards this week. Miles Sanders or David Montgomery, please. I'm in the chip. 50-50 odds, please, please, please. Yeah, so you got to go David Montgomery. We haven't talked much about David Montgomery on this live, but 100%, you got to start David Montgomery this week. You have to. It's too good of a matchup. We've known for quite some time that David Montgomery had league-winning upside given his fantasy football schedule. And now he heads into a game with Nick Foles. Nick Foles is going to be under center for the Chicago Bears today. And they're going to have to lean on David Montgomery yet again. David Montgomery has seen very consistent volume for the Bears. And guys, they're up against the Seahawks. The Seahawks have been destroyed by running backs this season. The Seahawks have no more Jamal Adams in the secondary either. He's got knocked out for the season not that long ago. You got to start David Montgomery this week. Another update from the WalterPicks app, guys. We are live on Android. The beta version of Android for the WalterPicks app is out. So if you guys haven't checked it out yet, you got to check it out on the Google Play Store. And we're also giving away basically completely free start-sit comparisons right now in the app. So I see a lot of start-sit questions coming into the comments. I will try to get to as many of them as I can as I touch on all the news. There's so much news to get through for the Sunday slate in week 16, but the app can help you out. And there's no more excuse for Android people. It's not a drill. So check it out. Link is in the YouTube description and in the TikTok bio. Sam, what's up, man? What's going on, Joey? In the playoffs, thanks to you and the app. This is what I'm talking about. One question: Moore or St. Brown this week? Full PPR. Yeah. If we're talking about DJ Moore, which I assume we're talking about DJ Moore. There are a lot of Moores, but I'm assuming we're talking about DJ Moore. I feel like you got to go DJ Moore from Amon-Ra St. Brown. And this is not an easy decision because Amon-Ra St. Brown, he has been balling out. Like, we know DJ Moore on a pure talent level is better than Amon-Ra St. Brown. Nobody's going to make that argument. But he's been outplayed by Amon-Ra St. Brown each of the last 3 weeks. So I will say DJ Moore has continued to be pretty impressively consistent given his circumstances. He's gotten over 10 points in 4 straight games. And Sam Darnold's apparently going to play more this week. He could play more than half the snaps this week for the Panthers. And that's good news for DJ Moore, who was absolutely balling out in the first month of the season with Sam Darnold. He didn't have a game under 15 points to start this season. So yeah, I'm going with DJ Moore. I'm going with DJ Moore, man. I'm going with DJ Moore over Amon-Ra St. Brown. Hey, Justin Jackson or Darrell Henderson? It's got to be Justin Jackson over Darrell Henderson this week. Got to be Justin Jackson. St. Brown or Devontae Parker? Yeah, I'm going Devontae Parker there too. I'm very nervous about St. Brown and Josh Reynolds this week. I am. I think there's valid reason to be concerned about both of them with Tim Boyle starting. Tim Boyle starting for the Lions. Hey, Sam, love the app. Got it on Android. That's what I'm talking about, man. Thank you for trying it out. Seriously, the number one way you can support me is checking out the WalterPicks app and doing one of the premium subs in the app as well. Should I bench Joe Mixon for Miles Sanders or Sony Michel? No. I wouldn't do that. You can't. You just can't. And Joe Mixon's dealing with some injuries also. It's not a great matchup for Joe Mixon against the Ravens, but the volume has been too good for Joe Mixon to bench him this week. He still comes in as my number 7 running back this week, even though he's dealing with injuries and it's not a good matchup. Like I talked about Joe Mixon in my video about Christian McCaffrey this week, which I got a lot of pushback on as expected. It's going to be a fun fantasy season next year. I know we're focused on winning the championship this season, but guys, Joe Mixon, who everyone expected to get hurt this year, has been the second most consistent running back in the NFL, only after Jonathan Taylor. He's seen at least 10 carries in every single game this season. He's played in every single game this season. And he's got back-to-back games with at least 17 carries. That's 5 straight games with at least 17 carries. You got to start Joe Mixon. He's had 3 straight games, I think, under 10 points because he hasn't found the end zone, but you got to start Joe Mixon. I have a good one for my non-PPR flex spot. Sony Michel, Hollywood Brown, DJ Moore. Oh, man. Non-PPR makes this harder. And because it's a non-PPR league, I feel like you kind of have to go Sony Michel. I feel like you got to go Sony Michel. Sam, my God, what's going on, man? Tua or Saquon at the super flex. Oh, man. You got to start quarterbacks at the super flex. I'm sorry. I like Saquon this week, but I don't dislike Tua either. The Saints secondary has not been good this season. Like, the Saints secondary still doesn't scare me. They've been a bottom 10 secondary when you adjust for strength of opponent. They are coming off a pretty scary game. They just held Tom Brady and the Bucs to 0 points. But yeah, I'm rocking with Tua over Saquon this week if I have to make that choice. Antonio Brown or Ezekiel Elliott? Yeah, it's got to be AB. It's got to be Antonio Brown. You got to start Antonio Brown this week. It's not a good matchup for Antonio Brown. I don't really care, though, because Antonio Brown has gone over 15 points in 4 of his 5 games this season. He's only played 5 games, and he's gone over 15 points in 4 of them. And he's seen at least 7 targets in 4 of them. And I think he's going to see at least 7 targets easily today. So even in a tough matchup, I think you got to start Antonio Brown. Love the app, Pitts or Knox. Yeah, thanks for checking out the app, Matt. I do appreciate it. And Kyle Pitts, I think rooting for Kyle Pitts has caused some physical pain for me this season. And I can't believe he made it to the Pro Bowl. Kyle Pitts has been a guy all season that you just have to start because of the volume that he's seen and the draft capital that you spent on Kyle Pitts and just how bad all their tight ends are. You kind of had to start Kyle Pitts a lot this season despite his lackluster production. But this could be the Kyle Pitts week. It could be. He's coming off one of his best games of the season. His first game over 70 yards since week 7 came last week against the 49ers. And he gets the Lions this week. And the Lions defense definitely isn't scary by any means. He's had back-to-back games now over 11 points. That's the first time all season since week 5 that he's had back-to-back games with at least 11 points. So yeah, I would be playing Pitts. And this is not a good matchup for Dawson Knox. It's not a good matchup for Dawson Knox. I do think Dawson Knox has pretty intriguing touchdown upside with no Cole Beasley, no Gabe Davis today, but it's not a good matchup for Dawson Knox. All right, I want to go quickly game by game. AB over under 60 yards. I'm definitely going to go with the over. Sam, do I start CJ Uzomah? Yeah, he's not a horrible sleeper. All right, I want to go game by game really quick. And if you come to the YouTube live, link is in the TikTok bio. You'll see my picks against the spread at the bottom of the screen. I have 3 different locks today. There's 3 different locks that I like. First of all, let me just start with what the 3 games are. I like the Rams to beat the Vikings. They're only 3-point favorites. So I think the Rams beat the Vikings by 3 pretty easily. The Rams, I think, established themselves today as Super Bowl contenders. And the Vikings are not a scary team. I also like the Raiders. They're in a pick'em against the Broncos today. The Raiders to me are much better than the Broncos. I think this game's in Denver, which is probably why it's a pick'em, but I'm taking the Raiders to beat the Broncos in that game too. And then the last game that's a lock for me is actually tomorrow. The Dolphins, -2.5 versus the Saints. The Dolphins are only 2.5-point favorites against a Saints team that's starting Ian Book at quarterback. And I know the Saints team is really tough to predict right now. They just held the Bucs to 0 points. They're not going to hold the Dolphins to 0 points, guys. Their defense hasn't been that good in the secondary this season. So, yeah, I like the Dolphins to beat the Saints. I like the Raiders to beat the Broncos. And I'd like the Rams to beat the Vikings. And all those spreads are under 3 points. There's a lot of COVID in the league right now. It's the bottom line. There's been over 200 players on the COVID list over the last week and a half. And no team has been affected as badly. I mean, there's been a lot of teams that have been affected really badly. But the Ravens are going to be starting Josh Johnson at quarterback today. And there were points over the past couple of weeks where the Ravens had under 20 players even practicing. And they're 7-point underdogs against the Bengals today. I'm taking them +7 against the Bengals. But because Josh Johnson is starting, you just can't trust Marquise Hollywood-Brown or Mark Andrews as much this week. I think Marquise Brown's in pretty much must-bench territory. I think Mark Andrews, you still kind of have to start because tight ends are just so bad. But, yeah, you can't trust Marquise Brown. Josh Johnson cannot throw the ball. Odell or Michael Carter? Yeah, I'm definitely going with Odell over Michael Carter. Carter had 3 points last week. I still think he's really good. But the matchup for Odell is undeniably good. I mean, really, the Vikings have allowed the most fantasy points per game to receivers this season. So you got to feel good about Cooper Kupp, who's gone over 90 yards in all but one game this season. I mean, absolutely insanely impressive season from Cooper Kupp. But you got to feel good about Odell as well. Hey, Sam. Jalen Waddle or Tyler Lockett? Yeah, I feel like you got to be rocking with Lockett. Jalen Waddle has a good matchup, in my opinion. But Tyler Lockett's ceiling is still higher. You go with Tyler Lockett in that situation. Jefferson or Madison have PPR. Yeah, I'm not benching Justin Jefferson for Madison. I refuse to do that. As good as I think Alexander Madison's going to do this week, you got to start Justin Jefferson in all situations. I think Jefferson's my number 2 receiver. He's my number 3 receiver. He's my number 3 receiver this week. You got to start Jefferson. Rashad Penny or Damian Harris. Oh, Billy, I think both these guys are traps. I'm not going to lie. I think both these guys are traps this week. I'm nervous for both these guys. Rashad Penny, I was all over him against the Texans 2 weeks ago where he had his breakout game. But part of the reason I liked him that week was he got to play the Texans. The Texans are the worst run defense in the league this season. No team has allowed more rushing yards per game than the Texans. And the Seahawks, they do have a difficult run matchup this week against the Bears. The Bears' run defense has been much better than their pass defense this season. But then Damian Harris, he's got an even tougher matchup against the Bills. And the Bills have allowed the fewest points to running backs this season for any defense. Plus, Ramondre Stevenson is going to be involved. So, honestly, I think I would lean Penny. I think I would lean Penny over Damian Harris. But I don't feel good about either of them. Tua or Matt Ryan? Yeah, I think you go Matty Ice. I think you go Matty Ice over Tua. Against the Lions, he could definitely throw for two or three touchdowns. McLaurin, Gallup, or Michael Carter. Yeah, I feel like you got to go McLaurin over both these guys. I mean, you just can't trust either of those other two guys. Antonio Brown or Elliott. Yeah, I'm rocking with AB. I'm rocking with AB over Elliott. I think you have Stevenson is out. Wait, is this true? Let me pop this up. Because that would change things a little bit for Damian Harris. I still think if Stevenson is out, and I'm trying to find this report right now, but if Stevenson is out, which I didn't think he was, but again, I'm going to pull this up, then Brandon Bolden would still slide into part of that pass catching role. This is not a good matchup for Damian Harris. It's not. Yep, Ramondre Stevenson on the COVID list. I mean, God, there's so many guys on the COVID list. Absolutely insane. Stevenson is out. Ramondre Stevenson is out. Which honestly, maybe Damian Harris is a better option than Rashad Penny, given that. With Ramondre Stevenson out, thank you in the chat. I do appreciate you calling that out. If Ramondre Stevenson is out, Damian Harris, I mean, he has a path to 20 touches. Brandon Bolden's going to be involved. He's going to steal some of the passing work. But Stevenson's on the COVID list. That's good news for Damian Harris. Let me update his projection right now and let you know what he's projected for. in PPR leagues because Ramondre Stevenson is out. That is good news for Damien Harris. And really, like the Patriots offense, they're built to run the ball. That's still not going to matter that much against the Bills. Like the Patriots are going to have to throw today. With no Tre'Davious White, the Bills' passing defense is much worse than their run defense right now. And Damien Harris now is projected for 11.7 PPR points. So it's not great. It is more than Rashad Penny, though, I think. I guess I would start him over Rashad Penny now. He has a pretty good bust probability, not the most exciting boom probability, though. So we run 10,000 simulations each week in the WalterPicks app to give us a sense of the ceiling and floor for every player. Because to me, range of outcomes is the most important thing to consider in fantasy football. Like, what is the best case scenario and worst case scenario for every player? Obviously, every player has a pretty wide range of outcomes each week. And I think understanding those range of outcomes is kind of the next evolution in fantasy football. And that's exactly what the WalterPicks app lets you do. You download it for free in the iOS App Store or Google Play Store. Link to that is in the TikTok bio and in the YouTube description. But based on the 10,000 simulations this week, Damien Harris, for example, he's got a 34% chance to score under 10 points, which is not terrible, but he only has a 9% chance to score over 25. So the ceiling's not that high, but the floor is pretty good. The floor is pretty good for Damien Harris with Ramondre Stevenson out. Mahomes or Burrow? Don't bench Mahomes. Don't bench Mahomes. Like, I know Joe Burrow, he torched the Ravens last time he played them. Joe Burrow threw for 416 yards and 3 TDs last time he played the Ravens, but I'm still not starting him over Patrick Mahomes. I refuse to do that. I refuse to do that. There is a few guys that I would start over Patrick Mahomes, though. And if you come to the YouTube live, link to that is in the TikTok bio. You can see my top 10 quarterbacks on the screen right now. I'm starting 4 different quarterbacks over Mahomes today. I'm starting Justin Herbert over him, who's my number 1 quarterback heading into this game. I'm starting Jalen Hurts over him. I'm starting Josh Allen over him. And I'm starting Matthew Stafford over him too. Guys, Matthew Stafford's a pretty good option this week. He's a pretty good option. The Vikings secondary has just been obliterated over the last month and really this season. What about Terry McLaurin? Yeah, I'm nervous for McLaurin. I am, but at the same time, Heineke's back. And it's not like it's a bad matchup against the Cowboys. So I think he does have an interesting ceiling, but he's definitely risky. Bolden or Latavius? Oh, God. We're in the semifinals, and we're deciding between Bolden and Latavius. And honestly, I feel like it's got to be Bolden, right? It's got to be Bolden. With no Ramondre Stevenson, Bolden's going to see a third of the snaps for the Pats, and he's gonna have a receiving role. And the receiving role is going to matter against the Bills. AB or Deontay? Yeah, you're not allowed to bench Deontay Johnson. We established this rule much earlier in the season, but Deontay Johnson's just not allowed to be benched in fantasy anymore. Like, he's too consistent. He's more consistent than almost every other receiver in the league. He's been the clear top receiver for the Steelers for really over a year and a half now. He's gone over 10 points in all but one game this season, and in that one game, he scored 9.8 points. And that was last week, his worst game of the season. You're not benching Deontay Johnson. You just don't do it. Do not do it. And again, I don't think you should bench Antonio Brown either. Like, you got to start Antonio Brown in most situations too, even in a tough matchup, but you're not allowed to bench Deontay Johnson. You just don't let that happen. Like, Deontay Johnson, if you're in the semifinals, he's a big reason you're in the semifinals. Tyreek or AB? Yeah, listen, I want to start Antonio Brown this week, but there's definitely some receivers I'm not going to start over him. And you can see that list of receivers on the YouTube live. Again, link to that's in the TikTok bio. But I'm not going to start Cooper Kupp over him. I'm not going to start Tyreek Hill over him. I'm not going to start Justin Jefferson, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, Jamar Chase, Adam Thielen, Deontay Johnson, CeeDee Lamb. I'm not starting any of those guys over Antonio. I'm starting all those guys over Antonio Brown. Excuse me. All 9 of those guys I'm starting over Antonio Brown. So yes, start Jamar Chase over Antonio Brown. Start Deontay Johnson over Antonio Brown. Adam Thielen's a little bit closer to me. Like, I'd still probably go Adam Thielen over Antonio Brown, but that one's close. CeeDee Lamb's definitely close as well. But definitely these first 5 guys, like, you can't bench Tyreek Hill. Sony or Hollywood, yeah, you got to bench Hollywood Brown. Guys, Josh Johnson is starting at quarterback for the Ravens. Josh Johnson is not a good quarterback. He's fast. Like, I think he's going to have a good fantasy day. That's why I'm starting him in my DraftKings lineup. But he can't throw. So I'm not trusting Marquise Brown at all today. Higgins or Thielen? Yeah. I have Thielen in my top 10. I don't have Higgins in there. I definitely think it's close. Again, the last time that Joe Burrow played the Ravens, he threw for 400 yards. 416 yards, 3 TDs. Like, I definitely think that Joe Burrow and T. Higgins can have good games. But I would go Thielen over T. Higgins. Guys, Thielen, all he does is score TDs, man. He's a touchdown machine. Hey, Sam, love the app. Happy holidays. Thanks, man. Yeah, if you haven't checked out the WalterPicks app yet, guys, you got to check it out. I know I've talked about it a lot on this live stream, but the link is in the YouTube description. The link is in the TikTok bio. Check it out. Really does help me out a ton. Zeke, Rojo, Javonte Williams, Sony Michel, Rashad Penny, half PPR. Also, no New Orleans, Seattle, or Atlanta defense. Yeah, probably the Falcons defense against Tim Boyle. It's probably who I would go with. Again, the Lions are going to struggle today. I know the Lions are on a little bit of a hot streak. They just beat the Cardinals. But yeah, I would probably go with the Falcons defense. And then with these running backs, I would probably go. So I'm definitely starting Ronald Jones, and I'm definitely starting Javonte Williams. Like, I'm definitely starting those two out of these four. I'm not even considering Rashad Penny in this situation. So it's between Zeke and Sony Michel. It's between Zeke and Sony Michel. And that one's close. It is. But it's a good matchup for Zeke against Washington. But honestly, Zeke is pretty sketchy. I still think I'd go Zeke over Sony. But that just shows you how nervous I am about Zeke. Sony Michel had 22 carries last game. But yeah, I think I would just go with these first three guys. And have PPR league. Zeke's touchdown ceiling is just too high against Washington. Again, the Cowboys destroyed Washington in their last game. I know Washington was without a lot of their lineup, but I still think the Cowboys handled them pretty easily today. 2-year sub in the app. Marcus, thank you so much. Seriously, number one way you could possibly support me is one of the premium subs in the WalterPicks app. Really do appreciate that. Link in the TikTok bio and the YouTube description for the app. We're on Google Play Store now too, Android people. The wait is over. Full PPR 8-point touchdown. Start Patterson or Jackson. Yeah, that's 8-point TDs. Like, what are we doing here? Start Patterson versus Jackson. This one's close. But honestly, especially with the touchdown mark here, I'm going with Cordero Patterson over Justin Jackson. He's got a better chance at a touchdown. I like both of them a lot. Don't get me wrong. They're both top 15 options. I think Cordero Patterson's a top 8 option this week, though. And he's coming off his worst game of the season. Cordero Patterson is coming off his worst game of the season. But he's playing the Lions today. The Lions have been a bottom 5 rush defense this entire year. Cordero Patterson actually played his highest snap share since week 7 last week. So he had his worst game of the season, but he played a lot. And he's now seen at least 11 carries in 4 straight games. I think he has at least 15 carries in the game today. And he's had at least 5 red zone touches in each of his last 2 games too. So I like Cordero Patterson this week. So I'm rocking with Cordero against the Lions, ahead of Justin Jackson against the Texans. I do like Justin Jackson. Can we trust Gibson? No. I don't know how we can trust Antonio Gibson. The last report about him was that there was some optimism he would play. That was the quote unquote from the Washington source, that there was some optimism Antonio Gibson would play. So how are we going to be confident about him given that report? Like, he just can't be. He still has some upside. And J.D. McKissick is still out, which has increased Antonio Gibson's receiving role. But certainly the injury makes me not feel very confident about Antonio Gibson. So I don't trust him that much. Loving the app on Android. Thanks, man. Also, Amari or Lockett. Yeah. Also, JT. I know Jonathan Taylor really busted in the fantasy football semifinals or finals, depending on your league. He still scored 10 points. He still went over 100 total yards, but he didn't score a TD. Especially after that first play of the game, too. Like, his first play of the game, he popped off. Really felt like it was going to be one of those Jonathan Taylor games again, but that did not end up being the case. But yeah, I would go Lockett over Amari Cooper. I think you got to go Lockett over Amari Cooper. Lockett's ceiling is just too high. And Amari Cooper's floor is too low, really. Like, the floors seem kind of similar right now. The app is amazing. Thanks, Elliot. Ronald Jones or Mixon? Yeah, I feel like you got to go Mixon. I feel like you got to go Mixon over Ronald Jones. Like, I get the matchup for Ronald Jones. I get that he could see actually just as many touches as Mixon this week, but Mixon's just seems too consistent of volume to bench for me this week over Ronald Jones. I'm playing Mixon over Jones, and I have Joe Mixon in my top 7 tight ends. Big Ben today. Yeah, I actually think Big Ben has kind of exciting upside. I do. I think he has, like, Big Ben could easily throw 3 touchdowns today. Definitely possible. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say I'm fully confident in Big Ben, but he's definitely startable in some situations. And like with all the backup QBs playing too, I'd play him over all the backup QBs. Is Henry a stronger option than Conklin? Yeah, I think he is. I think he is a stronger option than Conklin. They're both pretty similar though. And like they're both so low on the tight end rankings that it's like whoever scores the touchdown is the top 10 tight end now. And if they don't, they're probably going to go under 5 points. Like, that's the reality for both these guys. But I like Hunter Henry a lot. Jonnu Smith only played 25% of the snaps last week for the Pats. Like, Hunter Henry's taken over the clear receiving role. He's really one of Mac Jones's favorite targets. Pick 2, Lamb, Antonio Brown, or Diggs. God, I feel like you got to go Lamb and Diggs here. But again, I think you can trust Antonio Brown in a lot of situations. I have Lamb and Diggs ahead of Antonio Brown. If you see my top 10 rankings of the receiver position, again, if you're watching on TikTok, on the YouTube Live, you can see my top 10 rankings every position. And I do have Antonio Brown in my top 10. But I also have Stephon Diggs and Lamb in my top 10 too, ahead of Antonio Brown. And I know it's not a great matchup for Diggs, but yeah, you got to start him. You just got to start him. There's no Cole Beasley or Gabe Davis this week too, which is even better for Stephon Diggs. Make or break after A-Rob Mamba smashed me last week. With Zeke, do I start Tony Pollard or Jordan Howard, Devontae Smith, or DJ? Who is DJ? Is that Deontay Johnson? If it's Deontay Johnson, then you got to start him. If it's DJ Moore, I think you start DJ Moore over Devontae Smith as well. If it's Duke Johnson, then I would go to probably Devontae Smith. But yeah, I would start Pollard over Jordan Howard for sure. I would start Pollard over Jordan Howard. Miles Sanders or Pitts at flex. Yeah, don't start 2 tight ends. We do this every Sunday. Don't start 2 tight ends. You don't have to start 2 tight ends, so don't start 2 tight ends. Guys, tight ends are so brutal. They're so brutal. Like, definitely I'm starting Miles Sanders over Kyle Pitts. It's not even close. It's not even close. The volume that tight ends see is so bad. Like, Kyle Pitts, in a good game, he gets 5 catches. So, yeah, I actually do think this could be the breakout Kyle Pitts week, but I'm absolutely not starting him over Miles Sanders. Cordero Patterson or David Montgomery. Yeah, I like both those guys a lot. This is a good matchup for David Montgomery against the Seahawks. It is. And with Nick Foles starting, I think we see David Montgomery see a minimum of 15 carries. And he could easily surpass 20. But Cordero Patterson has an even better matchup than David Montgomery against the Lions. I like Cordero Patterson a lot. I'm refusing to bench Cordero Patterson this week. I think Cordero Patterson, coming off his worst game of the season, is a lock for a TD today. I think he could easily go over 100 yards. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it. Yeah, I got you, man. Cooper or Palmer or Knox or Goddard. Don't have to have Boom. Just need a safe floor. Yeah, I think if you're talking about Amari Cooper for Josh Palmer, you got to go Amari Cooper. Like that, you got to go Amari Cooper. And at tight end, go with Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert's a top 3 safe tight end. He might be the safest tight end on the slate today. He's my number 4 tight end, but like he's been the go-to target for Jalen Hurts. And he's coming off his best game of the season. I think his best 2 games of the season. Dallas Goedert's been balling out. I think he's had over 100 yards in back-to-back games now. One of them, I think, was with Gardner Minshew. But yeah, he's had over 140 yards in the last 2 weeks. You got to go Dallas Goedert. Metcalf or Justin Jackson? You got to go Justin Jackson, right? You have to go Justin Jackson over Metcalf. Every week it feels like this is going to be the Metcalf week, and it just isn't. It just isn't. The Seahawks, you look at the route tree for DK Metcalf, and they're literally just they're putting DK Metcalf out there, and they're just telling him every single play, yeah, just run straight. Like there's such little creativity in the Seahawks offense. It's brutal to watch. I would go with Justin Jackson over Metcalf. Jackson just has a way safer floor. App is a 5-star. Thanks, man. Rojo or St. Brown for flex? Yeah, it's got to be Rojo. It has to be Ronald Jones over St. Brown. I liked St. Brown a lot going into this week, but I didn't expect Jared Goff to be placed on the COVID list. And now Jared Goff is out, and Tim Boyle is starting. And guys, that's not good for Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's not good for Josh Reynolds. Tim Boyle is not someone we can trust in the fantasy football semifinals or finals. Like, don't put your trust in this man in the semifinals and finals. Tim Boyle has never given us a reason to believe that he is good. The last game that Tim Boyle played, he threw the ball 23 times. He threw 2 interceptions. He had 77 yards. 23 attempts, 77 yards, 2 interceptions. He finished that game with 1 fantasy point. He completed 65% of his passes, but his yards per attempt were 3.3. Like, this guy cannot push the ball down the field. Don't start Josh Reynolds. Don't start Amon-Ra St. Brown. So, yeah, that's the bottom line. Been subbed and coming to the stream weekly to support. Thanks, man. Question of this week is Sony Michel or Tony Pollard. Yeah, this one's not easy, but I would go Sony. I would go Sony over Pollard, who's dealing with an injury. He's splitting work with Zeke. Sony's obviously going to split some work with Darrell Henderson, but he saw 22 carries last week. Like, that's a pretty encouraging sign. Yeah, this is a crazy, Devin. You're not allowed to start Josh Palmer over Adam Thielen. Like, Josh Palmer's a good sleeper. Don't get me wrong. There's no Mike Williams this week. He's a good player. He's a good sleeper, but Adam Thielen is a touchdown machine. You can't bench Adam Thielen. Zeke or Gibson? I'm seeing Gibson or Josh Jacobs questions in the chat. I think you bench Gibson. I do. I'm nervous about Gibson given his injury. I'm nervous about Antonio Gibson this week. The last report about Antonio Gibson was there was some, quote unquote, some optimism that he might play. And I think he's going to play. But that report alone gives me a lot of concern about what type of workload he might see against a Cowboys team that I think is going to destroy them again. Like, the Cowboys just destroyed Washington like less than a month ago. And I think it's going to happen again. So I don't think that's good news for Gibson either. Status on Kelsey. Yeah, he's not playing. Travis Kelce out this week. Tyreek Hill made it back. Travis Kelce didn't make it back in time. So he's out, which makes the tight end position even bleaker for fantasy football terms. That's why you see my top 10 on the YouTube live. Again, link is in the TikTok bio for the YouTube live. You can see my top 10 rankings every position. Travis Kelce's not on there because he's out. Brutal. It's just a brutal time in fantasy football world right now. 1 year sub. Thanks, Philip. Waddle, Devontae Parker, Michelle, Abdullah. Yeah. By the way, we called Amir Abdullah playing more than Chuba Hubbard over the last 2 weeks. That's been exactly the case. Chuba Hubbard has been a trap, and he's a trap again this week against the Bucs. Not a good matchup for Chuba Hubbard or Amir Abdullah. Definitely, I would be playing Waddle and Parker over Amir Abdullah and Michelle. Honestly, though, I think you wait to make your decision for Monday night, but you go with Waddle or Devontae Parker here. It's a good matchup for them against the Saints. Honestly, I think I prefer Waddle a little bit because Parker's probably going to see Lattimore. Madison or Justin Jackson? I got Madison just ahead of Justin Jackson. Madison's the only of the three backups starting today. So Madison, Justin Jackson, Ronald Jones. Madison's the only one in the top 10 for me. I like Justin Jackson and I like Ronald Jones still, but Madison's is definitely the safest option. Like, we've just seen what Madison can do without Dalvin Cook, and it's been good. He's been a top 10 running back in almost all of those games. Kyle Pitts or Goddard? Yeah, so I have Kyle Pitts ranked one spot ahead of Goddard. I don't think it's crazy to go Goddard over Pitts, though. I don't. It's definitely close. I think Pitts has a higher ceiling. Goddard has a safer floor. But both, to me, are pretty good options at the tight end position. Been here since 10, man. Holden, thanks for sticking around, man. I appreciate your support this season. Pick 3, Amari, Gage, Renfro, DK, DJ Moore. With no Darren Waller, I feel like you really want to start Renfro. I would probably bench Amari Cooper in this situation and probably bench Gage. I'd probably go with Renfro, DK, DJ Moore. That's what I would do. I think all three of those guys have a pretty high ceiling. I'm playing Justin Jackson over Miles Sanders 100% this week. Guys, Miles Sanders is allergic to the end zone. He's allergic to the end zone. He has by far the most yards in the NFL without a touchdown this season. He hasn't scored a single touchdown. So, yeah, I'm definitely going Justin Jackson over Miles Sanders. Guys, we are live on YouTube and TikTok right now, and I always do this at the end of my streams. I always end the stream only on YouTube because it's a little easier for me to pull up comments, and I go rapid fire answering comments for the last 5-10 minutes of my lives, always. We're less than 30 minutes away from football. So come to the YouTube live. Link is in the TikTok bio if you want to enjoy the rest of the stream, if you're watching live on TikTok. If not, guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and good luck in your matchups today. If you are trying to stick around for the rest of the stream, link is in the TikTok bio to come to the YouTube live. Have fun and good luck today, guys. Thanks again for tuning in. All right. We are only live on YouTube now. The best part of the stream, where we go rapid fire in the comment section. Guys, this is what it's all about. This is what it's all about. All right, Jaden's asking, choose 2, OBJ, Gibson, and Ronald Jones. Yeah, you got to start Ronald Jones and OBJ. Bench Gibson. I'm nervous about Gibson with the injury that he's dealing with. Sam, big fan, championship on the line. DJ Moore or Odell. Yeah, honestly, I would go Odell in this situation too. Like, I think DJ Moore is a pretty safe floor. But Odell's ceiling against the Vikings just is too high. It's too high to ignore against the Vikings, who have allowed the most fantasy points per game to receivers this season. Hey, Sam, love the app. Pick 1, PPR, Gronk, Antonio Brown, T. Higgins. Had to start Kittle. Yeah, that's brutal. You had to start Kittle. Nick, you had to start Kittle. And you can't start Gronk now. You can't make one bad decision turn into 2 bad decisions. And it really wasn't a bad decision, just a bad result. Like, I would have started Kittle over Gronk 100%. I think you go Antonio Brown. overall, these guys, like, he's gotten over 15 points in 4 of his 5 games. I think he does that again today. I would go with Antonio Brown. Devontae Parker, Russell Gage. Yeah, I'm rocking with Gage over Parker. Pick 2, Mixon, Patterson, or AB. Love the app, my man. Thanks. I appreciate that. If this is a PPR league, I really do want to start Antonio Brown. Honestly, like, I don't want to bench Patterson either. But Mixon's the guy that's the toughest to bench because he's the guy who's seen the most consistent volume out of all these players. So Bailey, honestly, if I had to make this choice in a PPR league, I'm probably going with Mixon and Antonio Brown. But if I'm looking for the floor, and this is a half PPR or non-PPR league, I'd probably bench Antonio Brown in this situation. Penny or Sony? Yeah, I'm going Sony over Penny. Swift out. So Jamal Williams? Yeah, I think you can start Jamal Williams with Swift out. I think Jamal Williams sees at least 15 touches. Hey, I used the WalterPicks app for who to start between Gibson and Carter PPR. This is a question or a statement? Personally, like, I don't trust either of these guys. I would probably go Gibson over Carter, though. Carter's really tough to trust in this game against the Jaguars. In a game where both teams are incentivized to lose. I hate these types of games. Like, what the Jaguars versus the Jets, the only thing I'm confident about is James Robinson. But even still, like, this game could go a lot of different ways, depending on how badly each team wants to lose. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Treadwell, or Boyd? Yeah, I'm not trusting Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think I would go the latter two here. And Treadwell, guys, is the leading receiver right now for the Jaguars heading into this game. He's probably going to have another good day. He's one of the best values on DraftKings and FanDuel, too. Sub here. My whole team has COVID. Yeah, Finn, you're not alone here, man. Big Ben, Trevor Lawrence, Matt Ryan, and Berrios or Treadwell. Yeah, we're down bad. We're down bad, but we are not down and out. Finn, you can still win. And honestly, I think I would go with Big Ben over Trevor Lawrence and Matt Ryan. I don't hate Matt Ryan either. But Big Ben's up against the Chiefs. I feel like that game has the highest scoring potential. And Big Ben has he has more good fantasy days than you might expect this season. So I think I would go with Big Ben. And then I'd probably go with Treadwell over Berrios. Yeah, I'd go with Treadwell over Berrios. And, like, that game's just going to be brutal. Hunter Henry, Higbee, or Noah Fant. Yeah, I'd probably go Higbee. And Higbee, guys, Higbee put the nail in the coffin in a lot of my best ball leagues after he was a false positive 2 weeks ago. And then he was a real positive a week ago. So he's missed 2 straight games. But I think, like, against the Vikings, I'd probably go Higbee having the highest upside. Gibson or Saquon? Yeah, I'm going Saquon over Gibson 100%. You really can't bench Saquon. You can't bench Saquon this week. He's seen at least 15 carries in 3 straight games. Jake Fromm is starting. You got to start Saquon. I'm starting him over basically everyone this week. And let me pull up my top 10 running backs again. You can see these at the bottom of the screen. Saquon's my number 9 running back. I'm starting him in almost every situation. You got to start Diggs here. You got to start Stephon Diggs over Zeke and Jamal Williams. Van Jefferson or Marquise Brown? Van Jefferson. Again, I don't want anything to do with Marquise Brown with Josh Johnson starting. I don't want anything to do with Amon-Ra St. Brown with Tim Boyle starting. I'm not pinning my fate in fantasy football to Tim Boyle or to Josh Johnson. I'm not putting myself through that pain because neither of those guys can throw. Really. I love the app. Thanks, man. Let me pull this question up. Sorry, I thought it came up. Choose 2. Higgins, Zeke, Sanders, Odell. I would probably go with Higgins. I'd probably go with Higgins and Odell. Andy, if this is a PPR league, I'm going with Higgins and Odell. Just a quick question. Damian Harris, Justin Jackson, or CEH? Yeah, I would rank these guys Justin Jackson number 1, CEH number 2, Damian Harris number 3. Damian Harris does get a slight bump, though, because Ramondre Stevenson is out. He's on the COVID list. And Damian Harris is back for the first time since he played the Bills 2 weeks ago. In a game where he did pretty well. Obviously, that game is not representative of normal games. There was like 1,000-mile-an-hour winds in that game. But I still like Justin Jackson and CEH more, especially in PPR leagues. Justin Jackson's in a really good spot against the Texans. Zeke or Carter? Got to be Zeke. Can't trust Carter. Sanders or Michelle? I'm worried about starting Sanders and Hurts with each other. Yeah, but they're playing the Giants, and they're playing Jake Fromm. So it's not the worst time to do that. Honestly, I think that's a fine move. Logan, it lowers your ceiling a little bit, but it actually raises the floor because at least one of those guys is going to rush really well today against the Giants. St. Brown or Treadwell? Oh man, Logan. I feel like you gotta go. I feel like you gotta go St. Brown over Treadwell. Like easily Treadwell could outscore him. But with how good St. Brown's been, even with Tim Boyle starting, I think you go with St. Brown. Madison, Saquon, Mixon. Yeah, honestly, just go with the first 2. Bench Mixon, start the first 2. Carter or Michelle? Yeah, I'm starting Michelle over Carter. I don't trust Carter this week at all. Ronald Jones, DK, or Devontae Parker at flex. I feel like you go Ronald Jones. I feel like you go with Ronald Jones over Parker and DK. Ronald Jones, his floor. I mean, his floor is definitely higher than both these guys. Like I think Ronald Jones has a pretty clear path to 20 carries today. Again, no Leonard Fournette in the lineup. The Panthers' run defense is worse than their pass defense. DK Metcalf obviously has an extremely high ceiling. Same thing with Devontae Parker, but I think you go with Ronald Jones. Lockett or Harris for flex? Yeah, I'm going Lockett over Harris. Rex Burkhead, Latavius Murray, or Mike Davis? Rex Burkhead, Latavius Murray, or Mike Davis? I think you go with Rex. David Johnson's out this week. The Chargers' run defense is bad. I mean, the Chargers are still going to destroy the Texans. They're 12-point favorites in that game. But I don't trust Latavius Murray or Mike Davis even at all, like remotely. Antonio Brown or Cordero Patterson? Yeah, if it's a PPR league, you got to go AB. If it's not a PPR league, then you go with Cordero Patterson. That's, I think, the bottom line. It's definitely close. Pick one: Marvin Jones, Kendrick Bourne, Jacoby Myers, non-PPR. Yeah, I don't trust any of these guys at all. And part of the reason I don't trust the last two is because it's going to be one or the other in my mind today for the Patriots. Kendrick Bourne or Jacoby Myers is going to have a good day. I would probably go with one of them. And I would lean towards Jacoby Myers, who I think is the number one receiver for the Patriots still. But Kendrick Bourne definitely could out-receive him in any given game. Hey, man, love the advice and the app. Thanks, man. Adam Thielen or Russell Gage? Russell Gage has been balling. He's been balling. And I've been sleeping on him for the last month. But I still would start Adam Thielen over him. I still think Adam Thielen's a better option than Russell Gage. Adam, the touchdown machine, Thielen, it has to be started over Russell Gage. He does. Please, I've been trying all morning for an answer. Lockett or Harris? Yeah, it's Lockett over Harris. Will, it's Lockett over Harris. It's Lockett over Harris. Damien Harris is a pretty scary option this week, even with Ramondre Stevenson out. The Bills' run defense has been good this season. It has. So I'm playing Lockett over Harris. Ronald Jones, Monty, or Javonte? Yeah, I would probably say if I pull my top 10 rankings, I'm pretty sure, yeah, David Montgomery's in there. I think I would go David Montgomery number 1, Ronald Jones number 2, Javonte Williams number 3. All three are good options. They're definitely all top 20 options. Pick one: Tyler Boyd or Joshua Palmer or Marvin Jones or Michael Carter at flex. Yeah, it's got to be Boyd, right? It has to be Boyd. Like, Josh Palmer is a good sleeper. Marvin Jones is not someone I even want on my team, never mind in my starting lineup. Michael Carter had 3 points last week. And there's not a very clear path to him to getting more than the 9 touches he had last week. So I would start Tyler Boyd, who I believe is coming off his best game of the season, like by a lot. And the last time the Ravens played the Bengals, Joe Burrow threw for 416 yards. So Boyd, to me, has by far the highest upside and arguably the safest floor on this list. Pick 2: Gibson, Michael Carter, Craig Reynolds, half PPR. Yeah, it's Gibson. I'd go Gibson and Carter over Craig Reynolds still. I would. Swift is out. Yeah, DeAndre Swift is out, which is good news for Jamal Williams. Montgomery or Justin Jackson? I'm going Montgomery over Justin Jackson, but it's definitely close. It's close. I actually think Justin Jackson is my number 11 ranked running back, and Montgomery's my number 10. In a PPR league, you got to like Justin Jackson a lot. You do. In a PPR league, it's definitely even closer. But I'm still going David Montgomery. It's a good matchup for Montgomery against the Seahawks. He's going to see at least 15 carries against a defense that's allowed the top 5 most points against running backs this season. Nick Foles is starting, which is only going to solidify Montgomery's role even more. There's going to be fewer carries taken from Justin Fields. OBJ or Gage? Yeah, I don't want to bench OBJ against the Vikings. I don't want to bench him. I do not want to bench OBJ against the Vikings. Guys, some final thoughts before I wrap up the stream. And I'm sorry if I didn't get to every single person's comment. Again, I built an app called WalterPicks. Link is in the description that can help you make all your start-sit decisions as well. The free prop pick today, it is James Robinson over 17.5 receiving yards. The Jets have been horrible against running backs this season. Here's the DraftKings lineup one more time. I'm rocking with Josh Johnson today because I think he's running for at least 50 yards and a touchdown today against the Bengals. And that is enough for him to return value at basically bare minimum price on DraftKings. But I am nervous about the Ravens receivers today, like Marquise Brown, because Josh Johnson just cannot throw the ball. I'm also rocking with Tyreek Hill at wide receiver. No Travis Kelce today. Just insane ceiling. And really like a good amount of volume coming Tyreek Hill's way in this game without Travis Kelce. Jamar Chase or Hunter Renfrow, Jamal Williams or Sony. You can't bench Jamar Chase, even for Hunter Renfrow. I like Renfrow. Darrell Williams is out again. Darrell. Yeah, no, not Darrell Williams. Aaron Waller is out today. Good news for Hunter Renfrow. But yeah, I'm going with Jamar Chase 100%. Jamar Chase had like 200 yards against the Ravens last time they played. Jamal Williams or Sony, that one's much closer. Honestly, I think I might go with Jamal Williams over Sony. COVID sucks. Yeah, Isaiah, we can definitely agree on that one. OBJ or Gage. Yeah, I'd like Gage. I do. He's been really consistent. Like he's safer than OBJ. But OBJ has a higher ceiling, man. Against the Vikings, they've allowed the most points to receivers this season. So I would still go with OBJ for the ceiling. Same thing with OBJ here. Like OBJ, his ceiling's not that much different than Tyler Lockett's, in my opinion. So I would go with OBJ over Lockett too. Claypool, Damien Harris, Mooney, Jefferson, pick 2. Yeah, I'd probably go Claypool and Jefferson. I think both those guys have a really high ceiling in their matchups too. I think I would go Claypool and Jefferson. Hey, Sam, Justin Jackson or Gage? Yeah, I'd go Justin Jackson over Gage. Freeman or Singletary? I don't feel very good about Freeman. I don't feel great about Singletary either, but I'd probably go Singletary. Singletary had like 18 carries in this last game. Josh Palmer or Gallup? Yeah, I'd probably rock with Josh Palmer. I have no faith in Gallup this week. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. This is the last question I'm going to be able to get to. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button. Really good luck this week. I want us to make it to the championship. Dawson Knox or Devontae Smith. Guys, you can't start 2 tight ends. Fantasy football is hard enough. Kevin, don't start 2 tight ends. Go with Devontae Smith. I know his floor is low, but I promise you Dawson Knox's floor is also extremely low. It's extremely low. All right, I lied. This is the last question. Terry McLaurin, Darrell Henderson can't be started. Amon-Ra St. Brown can't be started. I'd probably go Russell Gage in this one. I think I would go Russell Gage in this one. Guys, again, if you didn't get your start sit question answered, head to the WalterPicks app in the iOS and Google Play Store, and we'll help you out. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a fantastic Sunday, and good luck today.